on the 23rd of April of 2024. We're glad you're with us tonight. We will start our meeting by having Council Member Pulver give us an invocation or a thought, or an invocation and thought, and lead us in the pledge at his discretion. So Council Member Pulver.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to do a little bit of both again. I thought since it's budget season and I found a couple of good, anyways, so indulge me for a second. A budget should reflect the values and priorities of our city and its people. Don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value. And money isn't everything, but it's right up there with oxygen. So anyways. Okay, and then I'll do a short invocation for tonight. Dear Heavenly Father, I'm so grateful for the city we live in and all the awesome people that we have there as well. Please bless everyone that we can have a great night tonight and have good solid discussion and come up with good decisions and things that benefit the entire city. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Please stand and pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Council Member Pulver. We appreciate that. Tonight, we have a special presentation. Reed Miller is going to recognize a member of our community in recognition of, I think the student's name is Sam Kimball. And Sam was the champion of the state of Utah Constitution Bee. So Reed, if you'd like to step forward and at the podium there. Over here. Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to recognize Ryan Santoro and also our mayor who made this possible for tonight. They made special arrangements. It shows that they really care about something that, you know, something as important as the Constitution. And so they fit it in. And this event just happened last Thursday. And so I want to just go over it just a little. First of all, I'd like to have Sam come up here if I could, Sam. And also his mother and father and their son Richard. Okay. First of all, the purpose of the Constitution Bee is to have students really learn the basic, important, inspired documents of our country. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and the amendments. And so what these students do is get a study guide with all the questions that are asked during the Constitution Bee. That's really quite interesting. And so in a way, it doesn't matter whether you're small or tall or whatever, you can learn it and compete. So, and Sam is in 7th grade. He was competing against 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. And he did such a great job. They have an elementary division, a junior high division, and a high school division every April of the year, and Sam has done so well. The competition is a question and answer competition with 4 students on each side, you know, each 2 teams, and they buzz when a question is asked. All the questions are about the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, and the amendments. And if you buzz first and get the question right, you get 10 points. Well, we had all 7th graders and we had 1 5th grader on our team. And they played several rounds. They played 6 rounds and they were undefeated. And at the end of this competition, there was one other team that was undefeated, and they played each other, and Sam's team won the championship, first place. And so there were 17 teams in the junior high division, and there were participants from Draper to Tremont. So it was really quite an event. And here Sam took first place. He gets a first place trophy, which is really quite significant. And he gets a nice medal. And then the team gets $500. Now, his share is 125. 20, 40, 60, 80, 120, 25.
Sam, I check those to make sure they're not counterfeit.
Thanks a lot. And you know what? It takes parents too to support him. And we appreciate Charlie and Cherie Kimball and the help that they did, because without them, it wouldn't have happened at all. So congratulations, Sam, and congratulations.
Congratulations, Sam. Hey, Reed, if you wouldn't mind maybe putting together a little article, we'll see if we can't get it in the Connection magazine. Maybe a picture of Sam and just a brief explanation. So once again, congratulations.
Well, it does good, not only for the school, but for the community as well.
All right, we'll move into our consent agenda this evening. Council, you've had a chance to look at the agenda and the packet that came out. Are there any conflicts of interest that need to be disclosed this evening that would prohibit you from participating in a vote on an action? I see none. Item number 2 on our consent agenda is to approve the city council meeting minutes for March 26th of 2024 and April 2nd of 2024. I think you've all had a chance to see those most excellent minutes written by our city recorder. Are there any further comments or questions, Ryan, before I seek a motion? Seeing none, then I would look for a motion to approve the March 26th, 2024 and the April 2nd, 2024 city council meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes from March 26, 2024 and April 2nd, 2024.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any to the contrary? Motion passes unanimously. I hope you notice, council and the public, that these minutes are pretty on time. Historically, we've had lags of 6 weeks, so thank you, Ryan, very much. Okay. We'll now move into our active agenda, which includes public comments. And I've noticed we have numerous citizens with us tonight who may or may not have attended previously to our city council. So just a couple things I would like to point out. Regarding items on the agenda this evening, there'll be 2 opportunities for the public to address the council. The official public hearings on some of the items that are here tonight were held in the Planning Commission meeting. And so we won't be holding official public hearings tonight, but we will have public comments. So if you have comments on any of the items, you have a chance to do that now in public comments or at the end of our meeting. But just a couple reminders for those who would like to make public comment. All comments should pertain to city business. So if you could keep that in mind, that's pretty broad. When you want to make a comment, if you would come up to the podium, and simply state your name. And if you're a resident of North Ogden City, we would appreciate it. Please limit your remarks to no longer than 5 minutes each. And you're always free to speak, but if someone's already said what you're going to say, you may pat them on the back and thank them, but you're always welcome to come up and comment yourself. You may or may not get an immediate response from the council. Sometimes the answer is not right at the fingertips of the council. So I've asked them to digest some of those things and maybe speak to some of the questions at the end. There may be questions that we need to research, so you may not get all the answers you sought tonight. I think most important is that comments are not argumentative and that we avoid any personal attacks. So with that brief introduction to public comments, if you'd like to comment, now would be the time to step up to the podium. Once again, state your name and if you're a resident of North Ogden.
Oh,
Bad
can't
timing.
see with the sun.
We're working on that.
Forgive me. Carmen Sinone, Weber County. And I'm here concerning the zoning of I'm here concerning the rezoning of the Jerry Shaw property. My purpose here tonight is not to speak against the sale of or the development of the property. Certainly, Mr. Shaw has his right to sell the property. Mr. Hanson has his right to try and maximize his investment, including taking advantage of the incentives to build multifamily dwellings that was passed during the last legislative session. My purpose is to articulate some of the consequences I see as an outcome of this proposed development, resolve some questions I have, seek assurances from the council, address infrastructure issues, and speak against the proposed R4 zoning. First of all, what on the concept map that was shown at planning and zoning, there are some small rectangles. What are they? Are they tiny homes, storage units, or parking slots? That was not addressed at the planning and zoning meeting. A development of any size increases the usage and stress on existing infrastructure. Increased density also increases vandalism and crime. There will very likely be an increase in trespass, vandalism, and theft in the surrounding areas, especially since we seem to be living in an era where people do not respect private property rights. Rather, many tend to see open space not as private property, but as public domain. And no trespass signs come down almost as soon as they go up. I'm already experiencing episodes of trespass, vandalism, and theft by adults and youth on my current property. In the last 18 months, my fence has been cut twice. Last November, an attempt was made to remove my west stock gate. A neighbor of mine also says that he has to fix his fence multiple times a year because trespassers continue to pull it down. I don't want anyone to be hurt or be hurt myself, but I will protect my property just as I'm sure any of you will if someone were trespassing or vandalizing your home, backyard, or garage. It's just some of us have bigger backyards. Along with development comes increased litter and trash. Hopefully, existing ordinance and penalties will be enforced to mitigate this. Water usage is a major concern. I would like to know where the water for this development and the proposed waterworks park will come from, and have the assurance of the council that none of the existing or dedicated wells in the area will be negatively affected, especially those on Lowman View and Pleasant View Drive. An assurance that existing flow and output will not be decreased due to this water usage. Also, where's the designated parking for the water park? That was not addressed at the P&Z meeting either. And this will only add to existing congestion in that area. I understand that the proposed development is marketed to young first-time homeowners. This will increase the amount of traffic in an already congested area, especially between 250 East and Washington Boulevard. For example, if 34 homes are put in. That translates to 68 additional cars. 68 to 70 dwelling units will mean approximately 140 cars in an already congested area. It is currently impossible to make a right-hand turn onto Washington Boulevard from Lomond View or Pleasant View Drive during certain extended periods of time during the day. In fact, I was stuck there tonight trying to get here, unless someone actually stops and lets you in. Making a left turn from 300 East onto 2600 North is equally difficult and very dangerous much of the day. Simply saying that there might be a light at that intersection at a later date does not adequately address the current and dangerous lack of infrastructure that currently exists there. The proposed development will only make this situation worse and more dangerous. Young families also mean children. Both children and adults will need safe and functional crosswalks from Lomond View and Pleasant View Drive to access the school grounds and park east of Washington, not just the lines painted on an already congested street that exists now. As a council, your responsibilities are more than to just pass a city budget. It's your duty to assure the ordinances and infrastructure are in place to meet the needs and provide a safe environment for current citizens, and to ensure that adequate infrastructure is in place to accommodate any additional developments you authorize. Much of the existing infrastructure, especially as it relates to traffic, is already stressed and inadequate to meet current needs, let alone those of a new development. Rezoning from Century Farm, basically agriculture, to R4 will only exponentially increase the stress on the roads and make it an already difficult situation worse and more dangerous.
I hate to do this, but I have to call your 5 minutes.
Thank you. I
Else I'm
just have one more
inconsistent.
sentence without, and I think I deserve it because I lost time not being able to see, which I still can't. Without first updating the existing infrastructure and accommodating the expected growth for an R4, the R4 designation is not only dangerous, but it's irresponsible on behalf of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave, would you move that back? Or up, one of the two? Thank you. Anyone else like to comment this evening?
Dan Carter. I'm a member of this North Ogden for 48 years when I married the farmer's daughter. And I run the farmer's daughter farm. And we keep it pristine. We mow both sides of the road for this, so it's very nice and clean and keep the farm pristine. And where we don't make money, but we have the land. And the land we're going to go for the Century Homes designation because the farm's been there for 140 years. Her grandfather had it, and then her dad, and then now I run it. But it's tough. And that road is just not adequate. And I surveyed, and I was inspector for UDOT. And I know that it's a dangerous road. Anybody parks along the side of it, and people dive around, and there's just no room. And that curve down by the Taggart's subdivision, which is nice because they got space in there. That's what I want, is space. And I get along with those neighbors just fine. No problem. We work together. But I can't see going through an agreed, I guess, a current zoning of Century Farms, 4,000 square feet lots shouldn't be adequate. Why it shouldn't be adequate for building and not overbuilding, and request for R4 up to 15 units if you know what an acre is in feet and length, width and length, 15 units is a lot. And then you got to accommodate the road system that I used to build, roads through the interstate. I was on the first interstate in Weaver County. It was South Lake to 31st Street, right through the dumps. And that's why it's always been asphalt, right, that area. But anyway, I've got the experience. I could say I had 33 years with it, plus I worked encroachments for them and consulting. So I know that we're creating a problem by allowing this R4 to go in. What's wrong? Well, do we have to bring a lot of fill in so we can sell this project? Is it not moving? What's the problem? Why do we have to go to an R4? I think it's a misjustice to everybody along there and to the city, each and every one of you. I don't go with it. And I've talked to the council people about the problem with, what do we get? We're the second driest state in the union. I've mentioned that to most of you. And why do we have to, Nevada's #1, by the way. We have to drop down and accommodate low income to build right in an area where it's pristine and farms and ruin that because we don't have much area like left. And I break my back. I've got heart trouble. I've got a pacemaker, and I've got all kinds of diabetes, all kinds of problems. But I'm dead set about maintaining the farm, and I have some help that I pay for out of my pocket. And I ran, and I thought, I don't know if you know Sonny Thompson. He's the one that's with the heavy equipment that helps me maintain that to get the crop off. Because you've got to have 5 acres in Utah to be considered agriculture. And we meet that requirement. We got 16. So that's my comment. And another thing, with Ryan here, I don't understand with these ladder trucks, and you got to have a big long fire station to house this ladder truck. But what I understand that it's contracted through Ogden City when it's available to come and go to these townhomes and put the fire out. What are we getting ourselves into? And those ladder trucks, Ryan knows, are really expensive opposed to what they use today. So I think that let's don't shoot ourselves in the foot.
Okay. Sir, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Anyone else this evening?
My name is Kay Johnson and I live on 200 East in North Ogden.
Let's try to get you out of this.
Thank you.
I think if you go forward now, Dave.
Forward now.
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
That's much better.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I live on 200 East and I'm concerned about my property values, among other things. And I'd also like to say several things here. I live on a little over an acre and I can't imagine more than 4 houses on that amount of land. It's just seems awfully crowded to me. And also I would like to agree with everything that has, all the points that have been brought up by the last 2 speakers. And that's really about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is pretty bright. Might have to get some shade or something for that. Hey, just wanted to come tell you guys thanks for being here. I know there's some of you here tonight who have kids doing different things and choir performances and all those things. So thanks for being here. It's kind of a thankless thing that you guys do, but I appreciate it. My name's Mark Miller from Pleasant View. It's where I live. There's a couple of things that I want to talk to you tonight about. First of all is, the first thing is we're doing a men's chorus, community chorus that I've started. There's a group of about 16 to 20 of us. And we would like to have a performance here at the Senior Citizen Center this weekend, actually. I should have been here a couple of weeks ago, but there's been a little back and forth about the fee. So I don't know how quickly it can be resolved, but if that's something that would be possible for you guys to offer no charge, that would be appreciated. We're not making any money. We're not doing anything. This is just a gift to the community, to the seniors especially. And actually have a program. So you'll see it floating around on social media. Okay, second thing is pickleball courts look really good. I just want to say, as a local business owner, thank you. We ended up supplying the lighting for that. And I just wanted to thank those who have an influence in making those decisions, that those decisions do make a difference for us. Whenever we can shop local, I encourage the council to do so. And third of all, Cherry Days is going to be coming up. As you all know, Cherry Days is a special time for our community. And one of the things that I'm going to be helping with this year is the entertainment and the morning devotional. So if anybody's got any ideas for a guest speaker at the morning devotional, get in touch with me. And also any ideas for entertainment, I'm happy to take those, fit that into what we're doing. So that's all I have. I hope it wasn't too crazy, but thank you again for all your work, and we're just blessed to live here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Dave Shoup. I live in Liberty. I own a business, Coldwater Animal Hospital in North Ogden. I have several concerns that I probably take more than 5 minutes, but let me try. Essentially, what I'm worried about are the vicissitudes that North Ogden City has given me. If you don't know what vicissitudes means, it means it's an unfortunate circumstance or happening that you now have to deal with. Let me highlight the vicissitudes that you've given me. Number one, you did a road construction project that went overtime in front of my facility. If you look at the businesses along that road, the only business that had a single access onto or off of Washington Boulevard was mine. Every other business you could access either from Lowman View Drive or Pleasant View Drive. But I was the last one to get pavement put in front of my facility. So I had to endure the construction for the longest period of time. I understand that to make the road better, it's kind of like making an omelet. You got to break some eggs to make an omelet. I get that. But I paid for that road 3 times, not only with my taxes, but with the lost revenue that I had to endure. And then thirdly, my time to make up for what North Ogden City said they would do and did not, or did delayed, maybe is a better word. The sidewalk along the south border of my property was another vicissitude that now I'm having to deal with. North Ogden City plows the slush and ice off of Pleasant View Drive onto a sidewalk that sits 100% on North Ogden City's property, but North Ogden City requires that I step off of my property and onto your property to clear it because of your city code. I do have a problem with your city code. A couple of problems. Let me read it to you quick. Required, it is unlawful for any person, firm, corporation owning or having charge of, having control of, or occupying any property, building or lot, part of lot, land, real estate of any kind, abutting on any public street in the city to fail, neglect, refuse, or remove promptly and effectively all snow and ice from the sidewalk in front of such property. So if we look at that, who owns the sidewalk? North Ogden City. Who has charge of it? North Ogden City. Who has control of it? Obviously, North Ogden City, because you're forcing me to do something I don't want to do. Let me finish the ordinance. In case of any such failure, refusal, or neglect, the Public Works Director may cause the removal of such snow and or ice and charge the cost thereof to the person so owning, having, charging. That doesn't make sense. Having, charging, is that good English? I don't know. You guys decide. But you ought to change it so it reads having charge of, having control of, or occupying such property. If I fail to do it, Clause B says any person violating any provision of this section is guilty of a Class B misdemeanor and upon conviction shall be subject to penalty as provided in CCNO 1-4-1. So if I fail to clean the sidewalk that is really yours, I stand to be fined and or imprisoned if I refuse to pay that fine. Let me read what my constitutional rights are. Sam might back me up on this. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime, whereof the party shall been duly convicted of, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Certainly North Ogden City resides within the United States, and I am being required to give my involuntary servitude to North Ogden City. It's not right. You're violating the Constitution according to my point of view. Other vicissitudes, North Ogden City changed the intersection where Pleasant View Drive abuts or adjoins Washington Boulevard from a right in to right out only lot, or right in, right out intersection. And I understand the safety concerns there. It makes it tough to make the left-hand turn across 4 lanes of traffic. But in so doing, you limited the exposure of my business because now that traffic flow on Pleasant View Drive is much reduced. And did North Ogden City compensate me for taking away my visibility? No, you did not. Thirdly, there's some obvious inconsistencies that I feel are going on in North Ogden City's policy, maybe is the best word, I don't know, planning. You held Coldwater Animal Hospital hostage when we wanted to add on to our building. We couldn't do it unless we agreed to build a sidewalk that goes north-south along Washington Boulevard. You would not issue a building permit, but I see multiple homes in North Ogden City that are undergoing improvements that are not required to have a sidewalk in place of theirs.
Mr. Shoup, I'm going to have to call 5 minutes. I apologize, but I have to be consistent.
Perfect.
So,
I have more to say and I'll say it at the end of the meeting.
okay. Thank you. Anyone else this evening like to comment? All right, we will move on then to our agenda. Councilmember Severing, I think you had a motion you'd like to.
Yes, Mayor, I think
Speak
that
to the
in
council.
regarding the fact that there are so many people here for discussion on discussion 7, I would propose that we move it upwards sooner on the agenda so that we can take care of that and permit people to get home a little sooner.
Would sooner be now?
Whenever it's most convenient to you.
I think that probably makes sense instead of getting into all the budget presentations. Do we have a second to Councilmember Severing's motion?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dal Paz. Is there any questions or concerns you'd like to express at this time? All right, all in favor of Councilmember Severing's motion, seconded by Councilmember Dal Paz, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We will now move item number 7 on our agenda, which is a discussion or action on the recommendation from North Ogden Planning Commission on a legislative amendment to rezone property for land located at approximately 281 East Pleasant View Drive from Century Farm Zone to multifamily residential. That will now be item number 4 on our agenda. So Mr. Hess, I believe you're making that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have the item, John's got the concept plan pulled up for you. I do just want to make a note as we begin this, that the concept plan is just that, it's a concept plan. So the action before the council tonight is a legislative action to apply a zone to decide whether or not to rezone the property. It would not entitle this concept. You know, the concept is just one of many different configurations that could potentially happen on the property. Those are administrative decisions that would be done by the Planning Commission. So tonight for the rezone, applicant property owner John Hanson has requested a rezone from a Century Farms PRUD zone, that's a planned residential unit development zone with a development agreement that was applied in 2022 to residential R4 on the property. It's approximately 6.35 acres. There was an error in the Planning Commission packet that included parcel number 1804800045. That was not applied for. That's owned by a separate party. So this is just the property that's owned by John Hanson Group. Project, like I said, began its process in 2021, had requested a rezone on the property from, at the time, residential RE20, 20,000 square foot, half acre zoning, to multifamily R4. And in 2021, the Planning Commission actually recommended approval for that zone based on the general plan at the time. The council went back and forth in the negotiations that can happen during a legislative decision-making process with the applicant and settled on small lot, single family. The Century Farm Zone is essentially approximately average 4,000 square foot single family home lots. The roads would be all public within there. 300 East is a 66-foot wide collector right-of-way designed to be an alternate north-south facility to 400 East in the future, planned to go all the way up to Alberta Drive in the future on our general plan land use map and transportation map. The John Hanson Group has worked with several builders. They've looked at the project and over the last 2 years have determined that to build it as the single family zone is not feasible, and as part of their right as a property owner in North Ogden, they've now requested a rezone to the residential R4 zone. The R4 zone does entitle up to 15 units per acre by zone, by the zone. In practical terms, when you look at other R4 areas, when you have the setbacks, the road requirements, the additional parking, the open space, you're really between like 11 and 12 and a half units per acre practically once it hits the ground. The 4,000 square foot is at an acre is 43,560. So you're approximately 10 and a half units per acre of single family sitting on it right now if you were to, you know, do the full build out. So the up zone is approximately that. It's about a 20% up zone to get to 12 and a half or 13 units per acre, depending on configuration. The developer did meet with Planning Commission in both a work session on March 20th and then a formal public hearing on April 3rd, 2024. We provided draft meeting minutes for you as well as the copy of the recording there. And the Planning Commission found that based on the general plan designation of downtown mixed use, that R4 would be an acceptable zoning in this particular area, given its proximity to civic uses, transportation facilities, our one transit line we have. It's in the walk shed to an elementary school as well as a junior high. There certainly are challenges with Pleasant View Drive, Lowman View Drive, and the width of Washington Boulevard in pedestrians crossing that, but that's going to exist whether or not this is 34 homes or 68 or, you know, a half a dozen. So that's something that certainly has to be considered and addressed. Really, this is, you know, the legislative decision making. You are entitling a zoning district. You're not approving a particular project. So consider the merits of the upzone in this case and Planning Commission's recommendation. staff's happy to, I'll sit here. I can answer any questions as we go along the process, and we do have the applicant here to address the project for you. So take any questions and we can have the applicant address.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Hess? Councilmember Pulver?
Scott, just to, you said it really fast and I was trying to
Sorry.
understand. No, it was just the one part that I was waiting for and I was like, that's it. Anyway, but looking through the zoning through what the Century, because it's a special, its own little zone for Century Farms, that it was 4,000 square foot lots. And you said it that if you build it out, you know, the upscale of going to an R4 is 20%. You said it wasn't, it's not like we're doubling or tripling the amount of houses you could stick on that plot of land. That I just wanted to verify.
It would potentially, at this configuration, this doubles the number of units because of the road configuration. It really, all of our multifamily zones, you require almost like a perfectly square, perfectly flat piece of property to maximize the density in that zone, which we have almost none of in North Ogden, at least left to develop. So all of them have their challenges. But this current configuration, I think, is 66. There's 3 different concept plans that have been sent in. All of them have their individual challenges. There's setback questions and considerations and other items on all of the concepts. So that's something the Planning Commission would grapple with, but this would be a doubling of the number of rooftops in the area.
Roger that. Thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember Dalpaz?
I looked for the single family map from 2022 to try to refresh. I couldn't find it. Do we have that we could?
It was in the.
It was in the packet?
Yeah, it's the screenshot on.
Okay.
On mine, it's on.
I just
page
looked on,
73
I
of
just
the
looked at our
packet.
website and yeah, clearly I should have.
Like an overlay.
So that's the development agreement. This is what you've looked for the original, the configuration that's approved today.
Yes.
Yeah, so this has received preliminary subdivision plat approval. It is an entitled project. They would have to escrow for the cost of the improvements and or build the improvements and then record a final plat and they could sell homes, but they are currently entitled at 34 of the smaller lots and then 2 half acres off to the west along Pleasant View Drive, with 300 East being essentially in the same exact spot, same configuration as the townhome project.
That's what I was looking for. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, that was,
I was just trying-
it was buried in the packet in the development agreement.
Councilmember Watson, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So if this concept plan is approved today, concept zone, the
So
zone only,
the zone would be approved.
right?
And
Not the
then the
concept.
zone
Okay.
would, the zone gives you like the sandbox, all the rules that you could, get to apply it. And then they would have to make a project that conforms with all of the requirements in R4.
Right. Sorry, I misspoke. So if this zone is approved tonight as proposed, then is there, what about the obligations that were previously laid out in the last plan, the donations to the park, et cetera?
Yeah, so one of staff's recommendations in this would be that the development agreement outlining open space requirements, a contribution for the park from the developer, and anything else that the city sees fit as mitigating any detrimental impacts from a project like this should be written into a development agreement. So if the council were to approve this tonight, my guess is that it would come more as like a conditional approval that would say a development agreement will follow before this is actually, cemented as a rezone. That would be staff's recommendation. I think there was a really good balance struck with the private-public partnership that the developer is doing on the funding of the park, as well as donating some land to create the water park there. And I think that should continue on forward. And that's also, it can be part of a negotiation in a rezone between the council and the developer.
Okay, thank you. So just to summarize, we would need to include that in our agreement on the conditional approval. I just had another question. I listened to the 2 meetings from the Planning Commission as they discussed this, and I was curious about this I don't know if this is a question for later, I can wait, but the front loading versus rear loading, where the driveways could be either in the front or the back. And there was a citizen who brought up another point that if we, at first, I really appreciate the idea that 300 and Lowman View and Pleasant View wouldn't have any driveways going out there, so that for safety reasons and for just, aesthetics. But a citizen pointed out that that would encourage traffic to move quicker. And I'm wondering from a planner's perspective, if that has merit, if that's true, or if it would, I think the other thing that was mentioned is kind of connectivity, people out on their front lawns more if the driveways do go out to those main roads, and then also having cars parked on the road and driving in and out, would that slow traffic down? Do you see what I'm saying?
I mean, the police chief might be better equipped to answer a question about speeding, but I feel like people drive the speed that they're comfortable to drive. So when roads are wide and open and unobstructed, people drive fast. That's where you get like the 85th percentile of speed, and that's how UDOT sets road speeds. Essentially, is how our DOT does it, is what the 85th percentile drives, and you'll drive it essentially what you're comfortable on. So this road will be wide. It's a collector road. Right now it's going to be wider than many of the other roads around it. It's also downhill. I mean, we've got speeding issues on 400, on Jackson, on 1050. If you just let your foot off the brake, you're probably going faster than the speed limit almost everywhere right now. So driveways may or may not impact that. I think that having a number of driveways on 300 East would not be ideal, especially since this is a future collector road. That was a good comment, I think, in the Planning Commission. And then because of the grade and the way the current concept plan is laid out, there would be no driveways off of Lowman View Drive into these units. Those would be rear loaded garages. So up at that level of Lowman View Drive, you'd be looking at essentially front yards, sidewalks, front landscaped areas that would enter into the front doors of those homes, and the garages would essentially be like rear loaded garages.
So thank you for that. The way that it's laid out now, where 300 East is kind of a wider road, and all the traffic is going to be most likely going south to 2700, and there'll be less traffic on the north road than down below. Is this concept plan, could that be changed and they don't even have that 300 East as a main thoroughfare? Or is that something that I noticed that in the previous meetings they suggested, they recommended only if we choose to keep certain, I don't have it in front of me. Anyway, tell me your thoughts on this.
300 East is really designed to be another north-south collector in the city. I mean, we need it. The areas of our city where we have a really good grid system, the traffic is much better than the areas where the grid breaks down. If the grid breaks down, it forces everybody onto Washington, it forces everyone onto 2600. So having a grid, while it might, from a planning perspective, while it might seem scary that there's going to bring more cars into the area, it really has an effect of leveling or averaging traffic across multiple streets. And people will self-select the fastest way to get to where they're going to go. I would imagine this is going to change traffic patterns in the area, but 300 is an essential north-south for us right now. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be 150 or others over by Cherry Springs Villas. Like, people use that as a thoroughfare right now. People, as staff, we do it. We cross through Public Works, and you're not really supposed to. That's our private back lot, but there isn't another north-south in that area unless you go, quite a bit further west. So 300 East is a necessary roadway in the area.
So that's a stipulation in this agreement then?
Yeah, it's really, it's designed to meet our long-range general plan transportation map.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Councilmember Barker.
You mentioned briefly, and I'd like if you could go into a little more detail. This does conform to our general plan.
Yeah, so John can pull up page 73 on my staff report. Not my staff report, sorry, the PDF of the meeting. I don't know where. You can probably just pull the staff report up, John, because it's an image embedded in it.
Okay.
So it's a little hard to tell, but that dark mauve purpley color, where that black line is, John's got his cursor on it, that's the subject property. That whole area is all downtown mixed use, is what it's called in the general plan. And the general plan, when you look at these blob maps or these areas like this, you look at, it's like a reasonability test of, does something make sense, or what's the context in that particular area? So in this area, the downtown mixed use, you have small lot, single family, the neighborhood project just behind us. You have the full civic center. You've got both of our grocery stores, a number of our commercial areas, 3 fountains, apartments, Patriot Point, some 2-family dwellings. Cherry Springs Villas is just west of this. But this area, since 2015, has been indicated as downtown mixed use. The area just west of it, the Chamberlain property, so the Jerry Shaw property was always since 2015 in downtown mixed use. The Chamberlain property was added in 2021 to stretch that downtown mixed use west up to the city's public works site. So that would be like the city's public works site becomes the line in the sand between residential, single family, and whatever else could go in here. So if you zoom out, if you look at a 10,000 foot view of this area, there's a number of similar uses. So by context, it seems like it fits. It's not inappropriate, meaning that this is all a cohesive single family zone area. In fact, it's probably one of the most mixed zoned areas of the entire city. So it really comes down to, what the council thinks is the right decision for any one piece of property that's in the downtown mixed use area.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalpaz?
Is it true that this area is in that transition zone? Or
It's not in the overlay. It's not in this overlay zone that has the hashed mark areas, which is like the preservation area. And we really don't have a policy for preservation. I mean, the preservation really comes down to when you upzone a piece of property, what are you negotiating for? Are you collecting a piece of open space, or you can collect trailheads or road improvements or any number of betterments, but this one's not in that open space preservation area and hasn't been at least since 2015. I don't know what it was prior to that.
I just remember myself, and I still feel this way. I felt very in favor of the way that it was put as single family homes in 2022. Even though, yes, it was technically against the Planning Commission recommendation, and this time would be the same thing. It would be against the planning recommendation. But I just always felt like that area I felt like the single family homes being smaller on smaller lots was kind of part of that transition between Lee's and further into the neighborhood. So that's just kind of how I've felt.
Any other comments? Councilmember Pulver?
You mentioned water, well, you mentioned to me anyways, water is studied before the development is completed. And I think that was one of the things I think several people have talked about. And I think for any development is a big issue, especially since Utah itself is trying to stay water neutral, And so I think the biggest thing is planning for that, like you said. And then one of the other things was the zoning going to that was not something a city, but it was Chairman Thomas said it was something that was done, and I don't remember what he said, but it was something that it was lots of people wanted it that way. And I don't know if you can.
I don't remember that comment.
Okay.
On the water comment, we're lucky we don't buy any culinary water. We pull it out of the ground, and North Ogden's weird. You poke a hole in the ground and water comes out of it. So we're pretty water rich that way. We're also, growth is coming, whether we want it or not. I mean, you can make, these are your opportunities to make the decisions about where the rooftops that are going to come to North Ogden are going to end up. And whether this is or isn't the right area is up to the council, but we're 21,000 people of 40,000 people that our county control totals estimate that we're going to be. So if it's not these 68 units, they're coming anyways. So we have the water. That's really a question for Jason Rennie or maybe Dave, but the city does and has to maintain a long-term water plan and water modeling system essentially. And that's why we just built that new water tank down off of 2100, is for future planning, future storage, future fire flow, so that we know that we have water for specific zones in the area. And in this particular area, culinary water hasn't been brought up as an issue.
But it will get, it's not going off well water, it will get city water.
It's okay. Everything
Okay,
gets
and I think
city
that was a
water.
couple of concerns.
Yeah, there's an on-site well that was deeded to the developer as part of the project. The city will receive that water, but it's not treated. So that's the water that it ultimately comes down and kind of cycles through the waterworks park and ends up in the storm system. So it's natural water that's percolating there. Now there's a gallons per minute on that water right that we know and understand and have the flow rate, but that won't contribute to any of the culinary water.
And council, just as a reminder, and I don't know if the study's been totally updated yet, but the last study showed that we have water capacity for the build out of the city. So I think, that's obviously very important that we continue to update that plan, but last plan we have shows that there's adequate water in the city. And I believe, John, that's only one of the reasons you can limit growth in the city, isn't it? Is because of a lack of water. Otherwise, you're pretty restricted on what you can limit.
Yeah, so you technically, the only time you can deny a project that meets all the current zoning standards would be if there's a fire safety or a water issue. And in our city, we wouldn't have a water issue because we've got enough sources, you just explained, Mayor.
So, see, Councilmember Watson.
2 questions. Our current fire trucks ladders can reach 3-story buildings, correct?
Yes. And in response to the ladder truck issue, we will have a new ladder truck in our city in the next month or 2. So it is coming. It'll be here before anything gets built.
How exciting. And then my next question is there plans for this stoplight at 300? I know it's in the general plan, but at what point does that stoplight come? And also, at what point does the road get updated or widened if needed? Or at what point do the sidewalks, or the crosswalks go in?
So one thing to note is that our maximum residential height limit is the same across every zone. So single family or multifamily, it's 35 feet. So you can build the same height structure, whether it's a connected multifamily townhome, apartment, whatever, single family home. The second question is the stoplight at 300 will go in when UDOT says it warrants. So it could be, there's a number of like tails that wag that dog, I guess. So if the project on 2600 that's going in near O'Reilly takes off and we have a big boom of commercial there, it's possible that that could be the trigger for it. It's possible that a housing project like this could be the trigger for it, but it's at a time when UDOT's traffic counters say that the traffic light now is warranted to go in, and we really can't. I guess we could potentially pioneer that and put it in, but it's kind of, we're held to UDOT. And then the third point is that, outside of really unique projects where we lead out, and some of those are like buying the right of way from Monroe or looking at federal funding to widen Washington Boulevard, developers build your city. And this is just how development happens in Utah. And it's not like this everywhere, but in Utah especially, developers build your city. We certify that it meets all those requirements. We accept it, and then we maintain that roadway, curb, gutter, water, pipes, storm, all that infrastructure in perpetuity. But we rarely ever build it. So, but for development, things like the widening of Loman View, at least along this frontage, are likely to never happen. I mean, we'd have to strip capital facility dollars away from potholes and other projects and overlays on deteriorating streets in order to build a new road. And that's just not the way development happens. I mean, all of the new roads in the city have been built by developers as part of projects, and then the keys are turned over to the city. So the sidewalks, the road widenings, Loman View's road widening, Pleasant View's road widening, so that would include asphalt, curb, gutter, sidewalk would all go in with the project for the boundary areas within the project, but they're not bound to do offsite improvements is what it would be called, which would be like widening the rest of Loman View all the way out to Washington Boulevard. Those are some of those strips and areas are the city might have to figure out a way to do it in the future because there's just likely not going to be development on those frontages.
Councilmember Watson, the long-term plan for UDOT is to put a cement barrier running east and west on 2700. So 300 will be a main. That'll probably be the entrance into the current plaza once they put that cement barrier. So people can't turn left. They'll have to come in through 300 East. So that'll force traffic there also. Council, would you like to hear from the applicant? Historically, we have. That's up to you. Councilmember Barker, I see several council members. If the applicant would like to make any comments, now would be the appropriate time.
My name's Mark Hansen. I live in Far West, and I'm here on behalf of John Hansen regarding the subdivision that's been discussed. A few thoughts that we've had, and as we've gone through this, just want to share them with you. I grew up, my dad is John, and I grew up hearing all kinds of things about my dad, and good and bad. And the good is what motivated me to be more like him and to join his company and to be part of what he does. And so I appreciate him for doing what he does. And most of that good came from providing people a place to live and to be housed and to, anyway, raise their families. And so our intent was never to get to this point of this project. Our intent of the project was to deliver a product that was affordable to more people than what is out there right now. We originally were excited about the single family homes, but as things progressed with the market and everything had changed, it became unrealistic to continue with the plan that we had with the market and the pricing that we were up against. Our goal has always been to provide a product that was around $400,000 to $425,000 for individuals and give them the nicest product we can for that value. As we met with the different builders across the state, and we met with several and probably submitted this subdivision to close to 100 builders, none of which could make it work at the time. Since this process has happened, that 400, 425 for single family homes has raised to 550 to 650. And when you start taking that into account, our motivation was to provide houses for people that could afford them. And now that same house, the income that's needed and necessary to live in it is out of reach for many people. So as we went back to the drawing board and came up with this new concept and saw it being more acceptable throughout other areas in the state, we felt it was a good opportunity, and this was a good area for the city to have these townhomes, which are technically attached single family homes, is what they're considered, single family homes that are attached. And so that's how we got to the point we're at now. I do appreciate some of the concerns that were mentioned earlier. And I appreciate them being respectful with the way they presented their concerns. That means a lot to us. I can relate. I've seen it my whole life and been around it. Even where I live in Far West, right off the freeway, I mentioned this to the Planning Commission. I live right off the freeway. You get used to the noise. But behind me, we just found out they're going to be putting a industrial park right behind my house. It'll be my backyard neighbor. Not ideal for us. I have some of the exact same concerns that were mentioned earlier. And so I understand that it is sensitive and that we do want to be good neighbors to everyone that's around. Some of the questions as far as the capacities and everything, we appreciate the way North Ogden City handles their business. They hire professionals to do the things that need to be done. We appreciate the work of the engineers and everyone that's in the public works and everyone that's going on to that. From our studies and everything that we've seen, we should have no problems, as mentioned, with the water or any of the sewer capacities or anything like that. So we're comfortable on all that. As far as the density, it will not be double of what it was. It'll be less than double with the setbacks that are required by the city. We'll probably be closer to 55 to 60 units versus the 68 that would be double. So we'll be just under that capacity. Rear load was mentioned. Our reasoning behind the rear load is the slope of the property. It's tough. And that's one of the reasons that none of the builders could make it work with 40-foot frontages. When you start stepping down, you know, there's a 2, 3, 4-foot drop on each lot with only 40-foot frontages. It became very difficult. So when we went to the drawing board and we did these townhomes along Loman View Drive, we'll be able to face the townhomes and use the building as kind of a retaining for the slope on the ground. And then with the rear load coming there, that will allow the aesthetics of the along Loman View Drive to be really nice because there won't be any garages. To your concern, as far as traffic and all that goes with, I don't know the answer either, other than aesthetically it'll look nice. And I'd rather have people walking up and down the sidewalks than cars backing into that road, trying to get in and out and possibly causing an accident there. Scott mentioned as far as the height restrictions, we plan on staying in accordance with the city ordinance as far as that goes. One other thing aesthetically that's nice about these townhomes is when you start laying out the single family homes, those lots were small and we felt good about them when we were doing them. But when you start breaking them up and having fencing in each lot, it becomes very compartmentalized on the property and kind of closes it in with 6-foot vinyl fences on top of each other. With the townhomes, there won't be any fencing dividing the neighbors. It'll feel a lot more open. We'll have a lot more open space because of it. A lot more common area for the neighbors to enjoy. We have done our best to work with the city in this area in this project. The 300 that's planned to go up through the middle of the project, that was requested by the city, and I think it will be a good thing for the connectivity of that area. And so it has been a little tricky to divide the project basically in half and try and make it work, having that road go right through the middle of such a wide road. But we are happy to do that, and we see the reasoning behind it and want to comply with that. I believe the well right has already been deeded to the city. You guys own that and are able to use it at your free will for the water feature and everything there. Whether or not this passes, we do want you to know we do plan on meeting our obligations and our word as far as donating the money that was required for the city park. We want to see that through, and whether or not this concept passes or not, we plan on doing that. So there's no problems there. I will say that we wouldn't have made those commitments if we had intent to come down the road and change it. It was never our intent to change the project that we had in place. It's just the market conditions and the difficulties with the property that led us to this point. And at the end of the day, I think it will be a better use for the land. I'm personally excited. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 18, getting ready to graduate from high school. Everyone's worry is where they're going to put their kids. I have the same worry, and I would love for them to live in this project and help them get started and, you know, move on with their life as they get going. And so I do have a personal interest in making this happen so that my wife will get off my back and we can have a place for our kids. Do you guys have any questions for us?
I do have a couple of questions if I could. If the council were to pass this, would you be willing to deed restrict it to ownership? Part of the problem in our state right now is a lot of these units are being bought by corporations. If the intent is to provide housing for individuals, would you be willing to deed restrict these?
Here's where we're at on that. That's a great question and a difficult one to answer. Reason being, we have it set up where we hope that they can afford to buy them. In today's market, that young couple or any couple really, they would have to make about $100,000 to $115,000 a year total household income in order to afford the payments on one of these. Okay, that would put their payment around $3,200 a month with the minimum down payment. You can go rent the same unit for $2,200 to $2,400 a month. And so it becomes a balancing act. Yes, we want these to be owner occupied and everything. But I think the reason everyone's being driven to these rentals is because they're up to $1,000 cheaper for the same unit per month. They miss out on the benefits of home ownership, but $1,000 a month is $1,000 a month, and that's where they're at. And so we don't have the answer to that yet. We're still
Which would lead
working
me
on
to
it.
the second question, I guess, on this. It'd be nice if we get them the price range for the state program for assisting down payments, but I don't know how anybody's going to accomplish that yet. So what do you feel the demand for the project is on an ownership basis? Would this be total rental, are you proposing? Or
We're-
would this
at
units
this-
be for sale?
Yeah, at this point, when we entered in and this idea, they were a for sale product. We're not committing to anything. We don't have an answer to that yet. We're only hoping to work with the rezone and then go from there.
So, what's the demand? I guess if you assess the demand for this product, because I think the last thing we want to have is oversupply in our city, because then they
Yeah,
become vacant and,
yeah,
so have you done an assessment of demand?
yes.
And how long will it take you to sell these things out?
We're hoping we can sell realistically 1 to 2 a month. We hope obviously more if things pick up, but with the current market rate and market interest rates, that's probably where we'd be. From talking to the different builders that are looking at, that's what they would put in their pro forma. So we do think there's a demand. Our intent and our goal is to sell these. The good thing about them is they will each have their own individual tax ID number. The ranches, which I think has turned out to be a nice project, that's not the case. Those will always be rentals with the way they've been recorded and the way the project is.
Because I think the objective is to let people get into homes where they can start building equity. This may be their first entry into home ownership. But I think, the problem we've got in the state is approximately a third of our housing shortage is because these homes are being taken by corporations.
Right.
So, I think that's an important question,
Yeah.
if these are rentals or if they're owned. And then the other question is, and I think I may know the answer to this, but is there any chance where this could be mixed use, where there are single family, small lot homes on the exterior and interior, there's townhomes?
We're seeing more of that as you are being developed and worked out. The hard part that comes along with that is those are usually on larger tracts of land where it becomes kind of their own areas of where they're at, and it's not as intrusive. There still is a little stigma if you don't want to be the biggest house in the neighborhood, and it makes it a little tricky to sell single family homes right next to townhomes at times. And so we feel this is too small of a project to really benefit from a mixed use with single family and townhomes.
Councilmember Watson?
How long do you expect the construction process would take? How long will you be building in there?
We'd like to see this before my dad retires. That could be anywhere from 6 months to 15 years. We don't know yet.
I think he said something about 50 years.
Yeah, he would if he could. These hearing things you've provided, thank you for that from my dad. But also not thank you, because now he can hear and knows what's going on, and it's caused us more work, but thank you. No, as fast as we can sell them is the intent. Fast we can sell them and move through them. A project like this would probably be, by the time we get it, would probably be a year from now, if it got approved to have the improvements in, and then you're 6 to 8 months to have the first ones built. So it's probably a 3 to 5 year project to see it all the way through.
Would you be the owner of the project, or are you just planning on selling this off to a developer?
We want to stay involved as long as it economically makes sense. And so, yes, we would. We are not builders. We have not been 1 ounce gifted with a
But
building.
you would
ability.
stay involved in the project
We-
as owners?
We'd like to, but again, we are in the business to do what's best economically for us. And so if a builder did come along, we know that we've made commitments to the city to have a nice project, and we would weed through the builder that came along if that ended up that route.
I'd be covered with the development agreement.
Yeah.
Any other questions of the applicant this evening? Any other comments, Mr. Hanson, from you?
No, do you mind if I ask one question to my associates to make sure I didn't miss anything?
Sure.
For clarification, because we did meet with a few different lenders on how to work this out. The payments for the minimum down payment, the interest rates and everything for a townhome was close to 29 to 3,200. The single family currently that would be there between 550 and 650, those payments are closer to 4,000 a month. So that's 50 grand a year just in house payment. So that's one thing that John wanted me to mention. Thank you, guys.
Council, do you have any other questions? All right, before us on the agenda tonight is the request for a motion to rezone this from Century Farm Zone to multifamily residential R4. And council, I know that these are emotional decisions. I would encourage you not to make decisions on emotion, but to make it on the facts of the situation and what is best for the city and for residents of the city. Those who are currently there, which we highly respect, but those who will be coming into our city. So with that, I would look for a motion to approve the rezone. Do we have such a motion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Barker?
I just like to mention that we do hear everything that's been said. We do understand everything. My reasoning tonight, if we don't follow our general plan, why do we even have it? And so if we're not going to follow our plan, why even, we've had public hearings, we've had discussions for, you said it got adopted in 2015. We did an update somewhere after that because I was involved in that as well. For that reason, I'm going to make a motion. We approve the rezone to R4 for the Century Farms.
Okay, we have a motion by
Second.
Councilmember Barker. We have a second by Councilmember Pulver. Is there any further discussion?
Just for a clarification purpose, sorry, I don't want to interrupt your.
This is an ordinance number, by the way, before I
Oh,
forget,
What's my ordinance? number? Sorry.
2024-07.
So the planning, just for clarification, the planning commission recommendation did come in with a few additional conditions, those being that the development agreement retain requirements for open space, park space, and no driveways come off of 300 East, Pleasant View Drive, and Lowman View Drive. Those are items that have been talked about. Staff in conversations with the developer had said, you know, who knows, we never know what direction anything's going to go, but it's likely that if there were a decision, it would come back with approval of a development agreement, and staff would strongly recommend that so that we don't lose the excellent commitments that we have so far, and also just to, you know, make sure that the project is going to.
But Scott, that's outside of the zone because those aren't requirements of R4 zoning.
But you
But
can,
we would need a development agreement
but you
that
can,
would be approved by the council.
you can require the development agreement as part of the legislative decision-making in doing
Right.
the rezone. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's
I
up
think
to you what
that
you want
is
to do.
recommended in the thing. So Councilmember Bark, would you like to amend
Yep.
your,
I got to throw in the ordinance number. I'll amend my motion to approve ordinance 2024-07, rezoning this property at 281 East Pleasant View Drive to R4 with the recommendations and development agreement as proposed by the planning commission.
okay,
Does that work?
covered there, John?
Yeah, we will bring the official language back for the council to approve at a future
Right.
meeting.
So what we'll do tonight in our voting, we'll start with Councilmember Pulver, we'll go to Councilmember Barker, and then we'll come down with Councilmember Watson, Severing, and Dalpass. So Councilmember Pulver, your vote?
Are we discussing or we just going?
I asked for discussion, I guess. I thought I did. Do you have further discussion?
Well, I just have one anecdote and I'll stop quickly if anybody starts yawning, but my son is in the process of getting a town or trying to get out of the house, like somebody was saying that, and they have to go farther north. And I think one of the key things is, do we want our children here or elsewhere? And I think that's kind of one of the key things with affordability. Nobody knows what that means, but I know that if they try to, and again, we're talking about zoning and how big things are. And to be honest, I'd rather have a really nice townhouse than maybe a single family house that maybe is taken care of, because a lot of people, and if you drive around, you know, the people that don't take care of their yards. HOAs, you know, they're good and bad, depends on how they go. But honestly, my decision is based on that, my experience with my son, and how, if you don't want them to live in North Ogden, then maybe, you know, anyway, just my thoughts.
I'm just wondering too, as part of the discussion, if I could chime in on this, I do believe that there ought to be some deed restriction on this for ownership. I think having another completely rented situation does not provide the opportunity for people to start getting equity in their homes. If that's what this is all about, to get people into homes that they can build equity in. And I'm not saying 100%, but I'm saying as part of the development agreement, there ought to be a discussion about limitation on rental.
Agree.
Just my 2 bits worth. Okay, is there any other discussion? Councilmember Watson.
Just really quickly, most of us recently came back from a training for council members and mayors from the Utah League of Cities and Towns. And one of the parts that I took away that hit me the most was the severity of this housing crisis in Utah right now. And my decision after researching and looking into a lot of the same concerns that I had as several citizens here in this room, as some of those things have checked out. Obviously, a lot of us live in single family homes in this area, and we love single family homes, and we love this area. We love this city for it. And it's hard to see change. Pull me aside and I'll tell you about how my backyard changed. But I just feel like this housing crisis, if there's anything that we can do about it, and if there's any way we can lower home prices for that missing middle, I think that that's something that's a goal that I want to see happen, and for all of Utah, but you know, especially for North Ogden, to provide affordable homes, whatever that means, however we can. Every little bit counts.
Councilmember Dalpaz.
I just wanted to mention, it seems like what I don't get is we're fixated on, when I got married, and I know it was a totally different market, so it's not apples to apples, I admit it. But we're talking like, okay, a young couple gets married and they immediately buy this brand new townhouse for $400,000. That just doesn't add up to me. The reason that I like the single family the way that it was is it provided this transition, and I wouldn't anticipate that most people it would be their first home. It'd probably be their second home because they took equity from their first and put it into it. And you know, I don't know, just it seems like we're fixated on that, and it's just wanted to throw it out there that, you know, when I purchased my first home, it was a very small, humble home, and it was, you know, not brand new. So it's just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll start with our roll call vote. Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Councilmember Watson.
Yes.
Councilmember Severing.
I just want to explain my answer before I vote, just quickly. 2 things. Number one, I having been a realtor for 28 years, the gap that we're missing is not townhomes, we're missing single family homes. We don't have anybody able to move up. So we need single family homes, even at this price point, in my opinion. Second thing is, in North Ogden right now, we have yet to be built close to 700 apartments and townhomes in the immediate future. I myself am concerned about the infrastructure. I've seen North Ogden go from 3,000 to 20,000 people plus. So my answer, based on those circumstances, my answer is no.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dalpaz?
No.
Okay, motion passes on a 3-2 vote. The property is rezoned. Okay, we will now move on to item, gotta get this right here. Item 5, which was item 4, which is the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget presentation. We'll start out with the Aquatic Center, Recreation and Events Departments, presented by John Call, our city manager and attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, our video has gone a little funny today. So I'm going to be doing this. Justin is here. He didn't want to speak though. So Justin is the kind of the team lead for the group, and him and Becca put this presentation together. But Becca supervises the recreation department. She's a department of one with several seasonal employees. And so most of the salaries that's in the budget is for Becca's time and efforts. And then the seasonal employees, most of theirs, obviously they're working less than 6 months and usually just for a season, or they'll come on and off as seasons come in. The seasons that we do baseball, softball, kickball, t-ball, football, summer camps, some 5K runs, the kids running club, and then basketball of the various ages and groups. So those are some of the fun things that they do. The majority of their budget is salary and benefits, but they do have 40% that's discretionary, and it's broken up with football being the most expensive. It also brings in the most money. So most of these programs offset their costs as far as that discretionary costs go. But then you can see that there's 6% of their budget is going into training, computer software, credit card fees, and then those kind of other things, the summer camps and the 5K race. The aquatics department, we have 2 employees there, Justin, who manages the pool, and Ken, who keeps it running. As a side note, Ken several years ago bought an industrial sewing machine so that he could keep the cover on the pool in good repair and extend the life. Most of the people that we've talked to about how long that should last, I think we've got about double the life out of it that we should have. And those covers aren't cheap. So he's, with a little bit of skill and some ingenuity, he's kept it going for us. But we do public swimming, fitness programs. We do some entertainment, some stomp, flick and float, the Benny's boat race. We also reserve the pool, do swim lessons. We have 2 free ramp days. That's part of our commitment to ramp for the funding they gave to us originally for the facility and the continued funding they've given us. And then we've instituted a canine kerplunk on the last day of the season. It's actually technically after the last day. And that gives, that's when we drain the pool and vacuum it out anyway. So there's no concerns about too much dog hair in the system. We do a lot of employee training and certifications right now. Justin lives at the pool. I don't know that he goes home, but he does a bunch of training with the lifeguards, cashiers, grounds. And then he does have a leadership team that works with him that are typically those returning lifeguards between 18 and sometimes as old as 22 years old. So we kind of are a training ground for those as they go out into their careers. Most of the budget there, again, is salaries. There's a 28% that is discretionary, but really it's not as discretionary because it's a lot of pool and maintenance and parts and things like that. But you can see the breakdown there with utilities, employee salaries and benefits, and the maintenance taking up 84% of our budget is in those things. We also have Morgan, who is a contracted individual. So she is not on our employee staff, but she runs the events in the city, or the majority of them, with a lot of help from Justin and his team and others, because she again is just a person of one. But things like food trucks, the North Pole, the Chalk Art Festival, we provide some assistance there. And then the Polar Plunge, Arbor Day, the Children's Entrepreneur Market, Movies in the Park, Fright Night, the tree lighting, Santa visits, and the North Pole that we already mentioned. In that budget, there's only 33% that's discretionary. We do get some money for ramp for our municipalities programming. But I think on this one, the biggest expense or biggest signal expense is the contract with Morgan for 25,000. And then we do spend, each individual event has its own kind of budget, and North Pole is probably the second most expensive, where we do quite a bit with the free cocoa and things like that for individuals who attend that. And I think I met the 10-minute guideline, Mayor. That's what I've got. Any questions for me or Justin in the back?
Good job, Mr. Call, staying within the 10-minute allocation. Just council as a reminder, and I know we've seen some comments on the recent raising of the fee to cover the substantially increasing costs of the aquatic center, just chemicals, electricity, all those things, just like everywhere else. I would remind you that the city, out of RDA funds, which are not perpetual, we have subsidized that operation anywhere, I think, between 30,000 and 150-ish thousand. If this does not cover itself, the council will be faced with then paying for that out of the general fund in the future. So just a reminder, the debt was paid off. It was quite substantial. I think 4 years ago, maybe, that debt was paid off to the tune of several $1,000,000. So there is no debt on it now, but just a reminder that the RDA is not perpetual and it has historically operated in a deficit. I know John and Jamie have worked to kind of project what it would take to break this even prior to the expiration of the RDA. So what questions do you have for John? I believe that the Budget Committee has requested that as we go through each presentation tonight, if they have a comment they'd like the council to consider, they have 39 seconds to make such comment.
Chris McIntyre, North Ogden, and I have been on the Budget Committee. Our general comment on the Aquatic Center is that we feel it's important that those who use the facility pay for the facility, and it doesn't become a perpetual source of funding by the city, and that the fees respect that.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Councilmember Pulver.
And I think the other thing is we were talking about is the right sizing, if you want to call it that, of the rec programs, and whether or not, I think something about doing a survey of whether or not, not survey, what do you call it?
Survey.
Survey. Okay, sorry. Flash vote. That's what I was trying to come up with. That went into whether or not the citizens were amiable to or wanted to have a little extra box to say, yes, I will pay an extra $1 to create a scholarship, as if you, whatever you want to call it, to for folks that, like you said, football is the most expensive thing, but they can't afford it. Is there a way to do that? And I think that's something that not only just right sizing the fees to make sure that the city isn't taking a heavy burden on the rec programs, but then the fees itself aren't too much of an overburden that, you know, you push a lot of kids out of it. So,
yeah, I think there was that discussion. I think the new league, I think it's called the Utah League or Utah Football League, Ute Football League continues to move north. I think currently our registration fees around 140, as I recall. John, is that about right?
It has been going up, yeah, but yeah.
I think their fees 350. So I think recreation is important. I think the flash vote will entail two things. One, do the citizens believe that recreation should be subsidized out of the general fund? or should it be self-sustaining? And just to clarify, the actual programs themselves appear to be self-sustaining, but it does not cover the overhead, so to speak, of the recreation department. That is basically paid for out of the general fund sales tax revenue. So that flash vote will ask the citizens if they want recreation to be self-sustaining, or if they feel that is something that should be subsidized by the citizens. But Chris, I think that's, Councilmember Pulver, that is important because we don't want to price people out, and we'd like to have a fund of scholarships to help those kids participate in sports whose families are unable to do so. So those will be the two, I think, aspects of the flash vote. Anything else before we move on? We now will hear from the distinguished Police Chief of North Ogden, Mr. Dirk Quinney. He's going to talk to us about public safety. You plan on staying for a while, Chief, or?
Thank you, Mayor. Staying where here?
Well, I don't know, you sat down, so I didn't know if your 10 minutes were too much to.
I'm giving you 9, so.
Okay.
actually, I just want to tell you, I was sitting a few rows back here when that sun came down. And I don't know if it's because my retina's got a little burned, but y'all look like angels right now. Halo's just. Okay, so the North Ogden Police Department, which consists of obviously the police, but also the community services. That's the department that takes care of our animal control ordinances and code enforcement. Just to give you an idea of what we're made up of, we've got myself and 2 lieutenants, which make up the administration department, and then frontline supervisors, and then their frontline staff under them, along with our civilian staff. Our deliverables and goals, our deliverables are pretty simple. It's service, and that's great service, and then safety and security of the community. And some of our goals that are going to help us meet that in this next coming year is what's called a live scan machine. It's a digital fingerprint machine. We're still currently doing the old ink and rolled fingerprints. So this machine would, to get us out of the gate, it'd be about $10,000. That's equipment and software. That'll help us provide a better service as far as our fingerprinting services and criminal histories and backgrounds and pre-employment screenings. And then along with our, as we're striving to get our website to better serve our community, we also would like to work towards getting more of our services online to where some people can access dog licenses and records requests, things like that. We'd like to continue also in our public relation activities that we do throughout the year, and even increase on that so we can make sure we maintain that great relationship that we have with our community. And then also continue to provide non-criminal services. That would include like things like lockouts and vacation checks and things like that that we, are privileged to have the time to do. Safety and security, we just want to make sure that proactive policing is going to remain our priority. I strongly believe that's how we keep our community safe, is by stopping crime before it happens. And we do that through proactive policing, stopping crime rather than reacting to it. Also, through that, we keep North Ogden a community that's not attractive to the criminals. If they believe they're going to come up here and get caught, they'll go somewhere else. And then also to keep our staff equipped with the tools and the resources they need to do that job. Okay, quick breakdown of the budget in its different areas. You can see personnel, our salaries and benefits is around 77% of the total budget. So the rest of it, the operations, motor pool, and our grant funding makes up the other 23%. Take grants out of that equation, and about 21.5% of the police budget is actually discretionary, something we, at least I have much control over. So we'll go through that, what makes up that 21.5%. Just a quick comparison from this year's budget to what's being proposed is without taking any consideration into staffing, $26,361 increase from this year, which is just over a 0.5%. And why is that 0.5% increase? First of all, the increases, subscriptions, memberships, computer software, equipment maintenance, $1,600 projected increase in that. Motor pool, a little over $100,000 increase in that GL. And the reason is this year we had 4 cars that were up for rotation. 2 of those cars were unmarked, 2 were marked vehicles, and there's a substantial difference in the amount that it costs to put a marked patrol vehicle on the road compared to an unmarked. And so this year, for next year, we're proposing a 5 vehicle replacement, and 4 of those being a marked patrol vehicle. So you compare 2 marked vehicles and the cost of 4 marked vehicles, and about a $20,000 difference between the marked and unmarked. Anyway, that's where the $100,000 difference comes in. Department supplies, about a $2,000 increase I'm asking for there. Most of that is to improve on our employee recognition program, our awards that we give out throughout the year to recognize some of the good work that the staff does. And then our TASER program, if those that were here last year for the budget process, remember we started a new TASER program where it's actually a 5-year contract with Axon, the mother company of TASER, that they will keep us equipped with the best operating equipment and replenish it when we use it over that 5 years. And that 5 years is broken up into not really equal payments, but the initial payment was 10, then it's 17 for the next 4 years. So that 7,000 is that increase from last year. And then the decreases that we're experiencing is the body camera update that we did this year. That was a $43,000 expense. That's a one-time expense. And then the mandatory 2-way radio software upgrade, that was a $50,000 expense. As the fire department knows, it's not been fun, but we're just about there. That's a one-time expense. And then we tried out a system, it's called Live 911. It was basically where our officers out in the field, in their cars, could hear a 911 call live in person as it's coming in, and basically dispatch themselves up to a couple of minutes before they actually would be dispatched through the dispatch center. We found that the system was not, it didn't work very well playing in the background when they're trying to operate a vehicle and do other things. It was distracting. Probably 8 out of 10 911 calls is a loose chicken running around or something like that. And we do have loose chickens running around once in a while, but so it's something we just felt that $5,000 expense, we weren't getting the benefit out of it. So we decided not to stick with that. So you take the pluses and minuses, and that's where the $26,000 increase comes from. The other part of our department is our community service officers, and their budget this year to next year is increasing 12,000, a little over 12,000. About 10,400 of that is an increase in the animal shelter costs. That's something we have no control over. Actually, we do have some control over that because it's based on, one, it's the bond payment we're paying on the building. But the other part of that is the operational cost. And they actually base that off of population, but also how many animals North Ogden City takes to the shelter. And because we have our own temporary shelter, we don't utilize their services as much as some other communities that most animals we pick up go directly to our temporary shelter where we keep them for a day or two until we can get them home. The other part of the increase in their budget is a $1,900 expense for a ductless fume hood. We invested in one with the completion of this building that we put on the officer side of the evidence processing. This one would be for the evidence tech side of the processing. And this is basically because of all the fentanyl that we're seeing. It's in everything. And anytime they're working with anything that we suspect might be laced with this, if it gets airborne, it's deadly. It's an ugly substance. We're equipping them with the proper PPE, and we're putting them in this fume hood to actually do the processing and packaging of that evidence. So we want our evidence techs to have the same thing. One thing I'm not asking for this year or next year is any staff increases. That includes an officer. In my time as in this position, and even prior, when I was a lieutenant, even a sergeant, I've kind of developed a theory that of when that trigger mechanism is to add that officer, and it has more to do with our ability to be proactive in our enforcement. And so that's what I'm looking at, is are we being effective proactively? And if we are, I feel like we're doing fine with our staffing levels. If that starts to decrease and we find we're reacting to more crime, then it's time to bump it up. So just to give you an idea where we are on our calls, from 22 to 23, as we go down, total calls went down 7%. Priority 1 and 2 calls, which are crimes in progress, domestic violence calls, anything that needs immediate action, emergency, medicals, those went down 14%. Traffic stops went down 18%. I guess that means our community is driving safer. Awesome. Traffic citations, right in line with stops, went down 14%. Accidents went down 3%. Non-reportable accidents went down 37%. Non-reportable accident basically is just a minor accident that doesn't require us to report it to the state. Hit and run accidents, 100%. And from this data, John, if you go to the next slide, we'll go through this is the kind of the per officer numbers that I use to determine when that trigger is to add an officer's. And the column on the far right is the percentage of our total calls that are proactive, which mean they're self-initiated by the officer. They're not waiting for something to happen and reacting to it. They're going out and finding it. So as we go down from 2017 through 2023, we increased a bit, and in 2021 we got into those mid-50s, which is right where I want to be. 56% in 2022, 58%, and then 2023, 55%. So I feel comfortable that if we keep that number there, that we're doing good. If that starts to decline, we need to take some action. So that right there is my reasoning why I feel like and I contribute this to the staff. They're out there being efficient and doing their job. So there you go.
Good report, Chief.
Thank you.
You did fail to mention that we're the 6th safest city in Utah as a result of some of the things you just talked about. So
I don't like to brag, but anyway,
that's something you can brag about.
Well, it's the
'Cause
community, and it's
That's right.
the
Your staff.
officers
Yep.
working good together.
Mhm.
Great team. So yeah, we're proud of that.
We won't count it as bragging. But I must say, I was a little concerned. I was driving down Washington Boulevard today. I thought we had some officers from some outside city pulling over residents. So I noticed it was one of our new Dodge cars. Is that? They just don't look as good as the others, Chief. I'm just telling you. I thought it was an infiltrator.
Well, I won't go into Dodges, but we happen to get forced into that because Ford told us they weren't going to supply us any more cars this year. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had to go to Chrysler product.
And then I think we're just about caught up on the depreciation, the unfunded depreciation in the fleet. So hopefully that'll kind of level out now going forward. We won't see the kind of increases, but if you've got 22 officers plus 2 CSOs and the cars are about 5 years in duration, we're 4 to 5 a year in rotating those. So I think we're right on. So Councilmember Dalpas.
I just quickly wanted to mention for anyone new that's attending city council, just you might not have heard, but all of our property taxes by ordinance are required to go to public safety. And so when you get your property tax bill, every cent of that property tax goes to the police department. And even with that, the police department is still not fully funded by our property taxes. So just the point of interest, so everyone knows, basically the general fund is driven much more by some of the revenues and sales tax that we get.
I think about 55-56% of the police department is funded.
Last I
through.
remember, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Councilmember Severing, you have something you want to add?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to add, excuse me, Chief, last year when I was with the liaison with this, with the police, I wanted to explain that, increase that almost $11,000 for the CSO. That's coming from Weber County upping the costs that we have with animals that we pick up, right?
So we have a bond, partial, we pay our part of the bond payment for that building.
Of Weber County's.
Weber County Animal Shelter.
Okay.
Which was an agreement amongst all but 2 cities in the county to go in together on this building to provide. So Ogden City shut down their shelter, Roy shut theirs down, and everybody went in on this facility that's ran by Weber County, but with the conglomerate of all the funds from the participating agencies.
Thank you for clarifying. I think that's just important for everybody to know that that's not something we have a lot of control over, that nearly $11,000. So thank you.
Okay, do we have anything from the Budget Committee on the Police Department they'd like to add? Great presentation, Chief. Thank you.
Two things. Chief didn't necessarily mention this in his presentation, but we noticed it in going through the numbers, and that is that, and we've listened to some discussion, and that is that we want to, as a citizen and in looking at the budget, we support the flock license plate readers and helping keep our community safe, and we would want to preserve those funds in the budget. Secondly is we wholly support his desire to have current technology for fingerprints and being able to identify individuals in our community that need to be identified in a quick manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Espinosa, looks like you have 20 minutes. You have 2 presentations. There's extra
Add real
points.
quick, there's another line item on the agenda for the flock presentation. So
Yeah.
want to make sure everybody.
Hello, council. So we're going to start with the Parks Department. So I'm going to go over 3 departments. We're going to go Parks, Fleet, and Maintenance, and Maintenance, and then we'll go Streets. So we'll start with the Parks Department. So first, we just wanted to go over some of the things that we've completed this year. It's been a very busy year for the Parks Department, and so Loma View Park is almost completely done. The pickleball courts are about 3/4 of the way done, and then the playground will be installed within the month or within about a month. And that park will almost be all brand new. We're redoing the parking lot as well there. So Loma View Park has been a great project there. The Waterworks Park hasn't got quite started. That was part of this development that we talked about a little bit earlier at the old public workshop. There will be some water used from the well that we got the water rights from. So it won't be our drinking water that is used in this site. It'll actually be from that well and the water rights we got from that well. We talked about the pickleball courts. Another project that we were able to complete this year is the Trailhead parking lot. That has been so well used, and it's been just a great project there too. So that one is complete, as well as the Frisbee golf up there in that same area. Last I heard, there was over 10,000 rounds played of the Frisbee golf up there. It's been well used, and I think that they're very happy with the course up there, and they do a great job with maintaining and keeping that up, and they've done a great job with that. Some of the future projects that we just wanted to talk about with this budget coming up, the 2550 pond is really close to being complete at the federal level as far as some of the processes that we have to go through with the feds. And so that we're hoping is going to be midsummer when we get some of those completion dates, which will let us at least start construction probably in late spring, early summer next year. So at the end of this budget season. There's the Barker Park project that's kind of going on with the community. There's been a lot of collaboration with the parks maintenance crew on trying to help kind of figure all that out, and I think that'll be a great project as well. And then the McGriff trail connection. So when they put the McGriff Park in down at the playground, we wanted to be able to have a connection to the trail system that cuts through McGriff Park, and so they'll be able to have that connection from the playground and the parking lot up to the trail system, so that people can use that trail along the canal road. Some of the equipment that the parks is that we are replacing or adding to our fleet is a direct collect mower. This is something that's state mandated for the Parks Department, and in a lot of ways, there's certain places that we have to collect our lawn clippings. We can't just mulch and leave in place. The pool's a perfect example of that. You can't leave the grass there. It has to be collected and taken off. So that's something that we are replacing. We have one right now, and we've had it for almost 10 years, and we're going to replace it. The Xeriscape projects. We have a lot of old irrigation systems in our parks, and so we've found that looking to be water wise in different places, McGriff's a perfect example. I think that we went back and looked. That sprinkling system is over 40 years old. It still has the old brass heads in our park strip. It overwaters onto the streets and into the sidewalks. Those are places that are perfect places for us to be able to take the park strip out of there, put Xeriscape down, and be a lot more water wise there. So that's some of those projects there. Snow removal. This Ventrex machine is actually built for sidewalks. It's built to be able to go on a 4-foot sidewalk without digging up all the grass or sprinklers or different things. Just so you guys, just to mention what our parks do as far as snow removal, they're out with the plows. Most of them do cul-de-sac routes, but some of them actually do full plow routes. And then after they get done with that, they get snow blowers and those kind of things, and they go take care of all the sidewalks at the parks. And so if we can find a machine that would make us more efficient in that manner, that's where we're looking at. I spoke about it, but at Loman View is one of the parking lots that we're just resurfacing. There's some of our parking lots that we couldn't find in the last 20 years that they've either been restriped or resurfaced. And so it's just trying to get those caught up and looking better. Our Kubota tractor is over 10 years old, and so it's kind of one of those pieces of equipment. You know, we're at that break point where, you know, if we replace it right now, we get a lot of value back in that tractor. You know, almost 65, 70% of what the new one would be. And so this is that breaking point. So we can decide to hold on to our tractor, and then we won't get the turnover back from it, but it's one of those things that we've brought to the council as well. And then the aerator is just for that Kubota tractor. That's our big aerator that does the parks. So they do the big swipes at, you know, the 10-foot swipes of aerating throughout our parks. Any questions with parks?
Thanks, Dave. I do have a question. When we put the Frisbee golf in, we made some commitments to citizens up there about signage, no parking, no smoking. Are those signs up?
Yes, so yes, most of those signs are, there's the signs at the very end of the parking lot are with like the no parking, no trespassing with motorized vehicles, those kind of things are there. The no smoking, I think, are around the buildings. I don't know about at the dead end, but I do know like over where the Frisbee golf starts, there are some no smoking. I can follow up.
If you just check the commitments we made
I can definitely
and
do that.
make sure we're up to speed on those.
Okay.
Any questions for Dave?
Just to comment that I think that snow removal machine should be worth it, because I've seen our employees with the single stage snow blowers. It looks miserable in the big storms to get through in any amount of time. So hopefully that'll pay off for you guys.
Councilmember Watson?
Sorry, I don't know the answer to this already, but so the plan, big picture plan where a playground is replaced every year, we're behind a year. So what does that mean? Wasn't Lomond View supposed to be last year finished?
Well, yeah, in
This fiscal year, so as it'll make it in this year, that the fiscal year that it was planned, so we're not behind?
No.
Okay, so then in the upcoming fiscal year, which playground is scheduled to be replaced?
It is, John, can you help me? I think it's
Mountain View.
Mountain View's part. It's either Mountain View's, or they were talking about if they couldn't repair some of the parts at Oaklawn, sorry. So it'll be one of those two.
Okay. Thank you.
Council, these are good questions, and I hope you're listening intently, because I have had the chance to go through the budget with Jamie. And right now, we do not have a balanced budget. So the council will have obviously decisions to make going forward on how they will balance that budget. So paying close attention, asking the right questions is good. Okay.
So that's
Dave?
parks. So we'll move on to streets. The streets department is, and I should have mentioned about parks, sorry. We have 6 full-time employees, anywhere from 2 to 6 seasonal employees that work in the department, as far as the parks maintenance goes. And so going into streets, sorry, we have 1 full-time employee in streets. Most of our stuff gets subcontracted out, and so Bowen, that's over the streets department, works with a lot of contractors in a lot of different ways, either striping, signage, street maintenance, street repairs, street lighting, all of those kind of things. He works with some kind of different vendor in all those different capacities. And so, yeah, it's just one person in that subdivision, or in that department. To go to some of our deliverables in there, this year we were able to do Fruitland Drives, redo the roads there. Barker Park subdivision, we followed the water department. The water department redid all the water lines in that department, so we followed up and came behind them and redid all the roads right behind that. We've done over 25 major patches throughout our city. A lot of them were some kind of to, all the stormwater runoff and different things that we had with some of that. So that's 25 major patches. We were able to do a couple of ADAs with our sidewalk, our safe sidewalk stuff. The one that we're happiest about probably the most is the one right above Bates Elementary. We were able to connect all that ADA. We have lots of kids that get dropped off at the park itself and then have to walk across the street and down into the school. We were able to complete that ADA right above Bates to where they can, use that crosswalk better. We've been able to do sidewalk projects throughout the city in a bunch of various locations. A lot of that's like 1 or 2 panels that have to be replaced. They're either cracked or raising or settling. And so we're able to try to stay on top of that. This year as well, we were able to purchase the 550 snowplow truck, which it worked really well for the parts that we were using it for. It is a little lighter truck, so we definitely can't take it up on the hills like we are able to with the bigger trucks. But it does have its place. We were able to use it down here in the flats and in smaller roadways where we don't have to have that capacity, like we do up at the up top. So that's been good. We actually received another snowplow truck that was from the year prior because they were just so far behind on parts and different things, and so we actually received the snowplow truck in this year's budget, but it was from last year. Some of the Class C road projects that we are wanting to do this coming up year is a bunch in Legacy Subdivision, Green Acres, 2750 is a big one, 800 going up into the Cove. There's just so many vehicles that go up through there that one is almost a reconstruct up there. 3050 North is another one that we will have to do a reconstruct on. Quail Ponds, some of these other ones that I'm talking about, Quail Ponds, Stone Creek, Northview, they will get it's a new surface treatment that we haven't tried out in North Ogden yet, but we've went and visited a bunch of cities near us that are using this treatment. We are finding great success. It's a treatment that gets put down on a subdivision after it's been put in place for 1 or 2 years. And it's been really good, and it's been a successful thing. And so that's what we're going to do with some of these subdivisions that we finished. Some sidewalk projects, same thing. We're going to just stay on top of that, different parts of the city. Road assessment, it's that time. So we try to do the road assessment every 4 years. It's been actually like 6 since we've done the road assessment. We actually pay a company to come in. They come in and they do a full assessment of our roads. With technology now, it's almost no different than like you'll see the Google car that goes around and does the new streets and stuff. It's that same idea, but it's actually honing in on our pavement. It actually can give us, what roads we have big problems, areas that we need to, do different kinds of treatments on, and so that we can best put down the best treatment for every road that we need to put down. So we're going to be conducting that. Streetlight projects. This is one of the things that we talked about in the budget committee, but it's one of those things that we haven't done prior, where we've went back and actually added streetlights to either older subdivisions or just areas that we know that we have some problem areas. Like 2600 and Fruitland is a perfect example of that. When you pull up to that intersection late at night, sometimes it's a pretty dark intersection, and so it's harder to see. And so we want to be able to add 1 or 2 street lights in different parts of the city, just for safety reasons and those kind of things. And then we want to continue our ADA ramps. There's areas of our city like Green Acres that we have tons of sidewalks, but there's almost no ADAs that connect some of those sidewalks. And so you're having people in wheelchairs and different, have to actually be in the road and doing that kind of stuff. And so we want to be able to get them back onto the sidewalk and be safe. And so we're going to try to use some of our safe sidewalk money there. This map is just from since 2015 through now. Those are different roads that we've done some kind of treatment on. And some of them actually probably need some kind of refresh or different things, but you can see all the other roads that we haven't done, you know, in the last 10 years. And so, you know, we've got a long ways to go as far as treating our, you know, doing different treatments on our roads and those kind of things. But we really are working at that and doing the best that we can and as much as we can every single year. Questions about streets?
Go ahead, Councilmember Severing.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for your presentation. I'm just curious, what's the cost of that road assessment?
It will be 40, I think, Jamie, $40,000. Or was it more than that? But that's with the engineering and all of that. So we put, yeah, so we did add 110 because after they'll actually come out and do the road assessment, we were gonna take that road assessment and be able to decide if we wanted to do a study to put the utility fee back into, or the road utility fee back into there. So the assessment itself is like 40,000, but then to do the rest of it, if we want to take the rest of it to engineering and those kind of things and decide if we want to actually do this utility fee for streets that we've previously done before and the courts have ruled that it is legal, that's something that we can do as well. So there's
it's
two parts to that.
Okay, so there's the 40,000 for the cost of the assessment. The additional 70,000 is the repairs?
No, so
engineering and repairs?
The engineering and then the study to decide if we want to do that utility fee.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Dalpaz.
On that seems interesting. It seems like a lot of residents comment that a lot of our roads are not in the best repair, and it's not a reflection of you and your work and your team's work, not at all. So it seems like we would be putting money towards a study to know something that we know needs, I don't know, that's how it feels, at least, like paying for a study to find out that the roads need to be done, but it seems like we know they need to be done.
So
Does that make sense?
the assessment lets us know how far gone each individual road segment is. And then the study then monetizes that and lets us know how much we need to charge to catch up. And that's why it's quite expensive, is the engineer spends, they told us it'll take about 9 months for them to complete that part of the study.
Okay.
So, but that would then, at the end of that, the council would be considering imposing a transportation utility fee. And before we spent the money on the study on the 70,000, we'd want to have a real conversation about what that fee could potentially look like and if the council would have the stomach to impose that.
Okay.
It creates depression for the council, because I think the last one that said it took about $10 million to bring the roads up to standard. It's probably 30 million now.
It's well over 20, they said.
And
So, so yeah, then you're faced with, okay, what do we do? Right? What you, excuse me, so emotional. Which then leads to, what is the council going to do to fund that? Is it through a transportation utility fee? Because it'll to give you an idea of what your costs are. So yeah, I call it, creates anxiety, basically.
Can I just, Mayor, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I think this is just kind of for information of the citizens, because I know it really surprised me, Dave, how many miles of streets do we have in the city?
It's about 110 miles of lane miles. So the lane that you're going is counted basically 2 times. The road is getting counted 2 times because of you're getting lane miles.
Yeah,
on it.
that, when you first shared that, it just blew my mind. 110 miles worth of. So, and it's not inexpensive to keep maintained.
Councilmember Pulver.
You okay? Maybe.
I think it's good.
Okay, so I think one of the things, the trade-offs that we're talking about, and Public Works is a great place to talk about this, is the fact that, and I think a lot of other departments have talked about technology. Public Works, there's technology, but for the most part, it's hands, work, equipment that are the key things to technology. And as equipment gets older, you're tied to, I mean, I was going to go on a snowplow ride, but he's like, I'll be back. I got to go fix something. And that's inherent to the system that we have, is that the older equipment that we have, you spend more time fixing it than actually using it. And I think that's something that we need, as a council, need to understand, is that, oh, it's only 10 years old. That's not too bad. But if it's in the shop 50% of the time, it's not being used. And so I think that's the key thing for what we're talking about, is while other departments can use technology to downsize or economize, buying new stuff for Public Works is kind of the only way to, quote, economize. And I put that in air quotes, obviously. So if you're not, you're spending time either in the shop doing something, or you're actually doing something with the equipment that's actually working out in the field. So just something to think about.
Mayor. Just one side note, Pleasant View is considering the transportation fee tonight in their meeting. So we'll watch their meeting and see what they determined there, just so everyone knows.
It's not unusual in today's environment. Anything else? Dave?
So we will jump to fleet now. So just talking about fleet, those of you I think everybody knows about the vehicle exchange program, but we are still doing the vehicle exchange program every single year. We take our fleet throughout all the departments that are in Public Works. So all of our utility departments, as well as the general fund departments, and we exchange those every year. We've been able to keep the cost of maintenance almost to zero. In a lot of cases, we don't even have to do oil changes because we're still way under the miles. We don't change tires. We don't do, and so that keeps our fleet department, that is made up of 3 employees, Tyrell running that department, as well as our building maintenance he runs as well. It keeps them available to be able to work on other things. And so we turn these trucks over every year at a net zero. So we purchase the vehicles, we turn around, we sell them for the exact same price, or the price, if there's any kind of increase the next year, then we'll sell those vehicles for the price of that. And so that we're always trying to work towards a net zero in those vehicles. Parks equipment, we've been on a rotation where we replace these 2 mowers. They're basically in 2 different budget years, but what we do is we do it in June of one budget year and July of the other one. So it basically that we get them together all the time. So we're actually rotating those mowers together, but they're different budget years. We've been able to do that. It's been a great program. It tries to keep maintenance down and those kind of things, and keeps us mowing all of our parks. The snowplow truck, so we purchased the snowplow truck. We kind of talked about this a little earlier in the streets department, but we were able to purchase that snowplow truck. We had to wait a real long time, the 24 months, before we even got that truck. A dump trailer we were able to purchase. It's utilized in all of our parks and multiple other departments, being able to haul off all, different things. Floor cleaners for all of our shops. This was a safety thing that kind of came down when we did an inspection with the state, that they were saying like, hey, these are things that you need to have in place, and we And so that's why we purchased that last year. We were able to get that. The loader forks, again, a safety thing. The forks that we had were over 20 years old and they were not safe like the ones that we have now. And then a top side creeper is just a piece of equipment. They're able to work over a vehicle. They're able to get onto this machine and work over a vehicle. So that's just another tool for our mechanics. Things that we're asking for this year. We're just trying to stay up with the snowplow trucks. As many, we've been able to get snowplow trucks in the last few years. But the biggest thing is we have over 10 that are at least 18 years old or older. And so they take a lot of wear and tear. They take almost all of the winter time in our mechanics. Like they're constantly getting brought in and rotated and done different things. And, we talked about that if they spend 50% of the time in there, they're not out on the roads 50% of the time, which means that we have employees that are now leaving one route and covering a whole different one because we have multiple trucks in our bays getting worked on. We are looking for a new excavator. We've had ours since 2003, Ty? Yeah, 2003. So over 20 years old. The last quote we got to get the repairs that we need on it right now are over $10,000. And so it's one of those things we're now starting to dump more money into it than the thing is worth. And so we're asking for an excavator. Dump trucks. We always talk about snowplow trucks because that's one of the hot topics. And we have we have a lot of snowplow trucks, but we do have 3 dump trucks, and all 3 dump trucks are 20 years plus. The newest one we have, we actually bought it was 5 years, or it was a 5-year-old used truck. That is used for all of our, you've got water leaks, cleanups. So all the departments use this. And I guess I should have talked about that about fleet. All 4 utility funds, as well as the general fund, pay into fleet to pay for fleet. And so when you see us talking about some of these other things that are being used from other departments, it's because those departments are actually paying into fleet. And so, and then the loader is a lot like our tractor that we talked about earlier. We're just at that point where we've got to decide, like, if we trade it in now, we can get the most equity out of it right now. It's still in really good shape. But it's getting to the point where we're going to see that downhill with the equity, where we're not going to get the return on that loader. And so it's one of the pieces of equipment, the big pieces of equipment that we actually own outright. Some of the other ones are on leases, like our backhoe's on a lease, our mini excavator's on a lease, and some of our other equipment's on leases. This is one piece that we actually have always owned, is our loader. And so we just got to make that decision. And maybe it's to go to a lease. I mean, that was a conversation as well, but we have to make that decision, and we're just asking for a loader with this. And then an AC recovery system. Again, it's just something that we need to make sure that we are keeping up with state regulations and different things, and the machinery that we have right now doesn't do that. And we need this piece of equipment to do those kind of things. And is that all, Joe?
Yep.
Okay. Anything?
Any questions for Mr. Espinosa? Mr. Severing?
Thank you, Mayor. When you talk about the excavator, are you talking like a track hoe?
A track hoe, yeah.
A big track hoe?
Yes.
Actually buying a track hoe?
Yeah. So, and we do own the track hoe we have right now. Like I said, it's a 2003, so it's 22 years old. And like I said, the last quote we got to replace the tracks and that system was like over $10,000. Like we're seriously like just constantly having to put money into the one that we have to the point where it's costing us more than what it's worth.
What's the cost for a new Traco?
The new Traco, if we did a lease to own, sorry, I'm pulling it up right now. So we would do it on a lease to own, and so we have in there $18,000, and it would it'd be either on a 5 or a 6 year agreement.
So it's $18,000 a year.
Yes.
Multiplied by 5 to 6 years.
Yeah. So you're 100,000, we're close to 100,000 there.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Does the Budget Committee have anything to add to these presentations?
We would like to recommend keeping the parks under Public Works. I think that the city is seeing a mutual benefit from there, and it's to a cost advantage. And we're not seeing it's not observed that we're having a decrease in service as a result of that combining. We also feel like it's a good use of funds to fund the streetlights that was mentioned here. Public safety can't always be replaced, so a few streetlights would be what we'd recommend as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Call, you'd like to talk to us about the non-departmental budget?
It's only 2 slides.
Maybe. That's the first one.
Oh, it's 3 slides. Sorry. Non-departmental, it's a hodgepodge, which is why you get a hodgepodge of pictures. But this is where we have everything that just kind of doesn't fit anywhere else in the city. And usually it's things that belong to the whole city. For example, the insurance, our general liability insurance, our website, our computer hosting, or our computer services. And then, as you can see, each of those items are kind of the highlights of things that are going up, with an overall increase in the budget of about 9% or $50,000. Most of that is the insurance cost. So we have anticipated a 3 or 5% increase in our general liability insurance. And there's a lot of factors that go into that, and we won't know for sure until we get our final numbers here. And we'll get it sometime between when the tentative budget's approved and the final budget. Any questions about non-departmental? Okay. Buildings and grounds. This, again, we've seen lots of increases. The majority of those have been tied to supplies, utilities, and the cleaning contract. For example, the cleaning contract for this building as opposed to the old building was about an 80% increase. That's partly just because the new contract is more expensive. We did do a full process, had 8 or 9 people apply, went with the low cost vendor, which was actually our current vendor. But we've just seen an increase in the cost to keep someone coming and cleaning our buildings for us. And then supplies, and in particular utilities, we've seen a significant increase in utilities. And for this building, because we don't know how it's going to operate, it's a fairly efficient building, but it's also a very large building, right sized for our growth. But we budgeted some increase in utilities of about $50,000, or sorry, $30,000 in utility increase. And so you can see the total increase for all of these is about 28.2%, which is $83,000. So it is quite a bump. But it's one of those things that we need toilet paper and we need the lights to turn on. So any questions about that?
Chris, over.
The non-departmental, I think the one thing we wanted to note was flash vote, use it. And I think that was, we've already talked about that. And then the big thing that we also saw was that with a couple of claims, well, a few claims to the city on insurance, that has greatly kicked us in the butt, so to speak, when it comes to that. So And that's just waiting for that to go back down. Anyway, that's what we kind of looked at a couple of meetings ago.
So anyone has seen their house insurance and their auto insurance renewals lately can have an understanding of what's going on here. So it's pretty significant. Councilmember Severing?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. John, what was the senior center 50% increase?
So that's the cost to clean it and
That's just the cleaning.
the supplies. And there is some utilities in there too, but it's not as big of a dollar number, but it is an increase.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Call? Seeing none, then we'll go on to item 6, which used to be item 5, which is the discussion on the flock safety system. Our police chief, Mr. Dirk Quinney, will lead that discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna have Detective John Ungard join me. He's the administrator over our flock system. Make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to. So there were some concerns that came up. We want to make sure we address. There's some questions that came up that we want to make sure we answer. And I'm sure there's probably going to be some additional questions and concerns that come up. So hopefully we can everybody's questions answered. We've also got, I think, John Ulysses Cabrera, who is a representative with Flock. He should be joining us on Zoom. So he's available if we have any questions that we want to ask Flock directly. So just really quick, Flock is the vendor of our license plate reader program in the city. We have 10 cameras that are strategically placed for our egress and ingress coming in and out of the city. And they do one thing, and they read every license plate that goes by, and that's it. And then that license plate is compared to the data in the NCIC computer database, which is the National Crime Information Center, which is where we enter stolen cars, wanted people, missing persons, fugitives, and things like that that would be related to a vehicle that we would enter into that database. So if it's not in that database, then the system doesn't care. But if it hits on that, then that's when we get a notice, and it's usually within 15 seconds. That is the proactive or the proactive part of the system. The reactive part is if we have an investigation where we're looking for a specific vehicle, and we'll have some examples in the slideshow here coming up, but we might just know what color it is and what shape it is. And given a certain time frame, we can throw that in the system and it'll give us some results. And often we've been successful in having some solving some crimes. So let's go on to the next slide, John. So this is the proactive part of the system, the hot list notices, warrants, stolen vehicles, stolen license plates, amber alerts, silver alerts. And those photographs that you see there are sample photographs that are used in training. It's something that there's a permission thing with it, that it's for training purposes. It's not associated with our city or our system. Next slide. Just some successes that I just want to let you know about. A failure to yield, which was a vehicle that ran from one of our officers. We were able to identify it and actually track it through the system, where the vehicle ended up just on the border of Weber County, Box Elder County, where it crashed, and we took 3 individuals into custody that were from out of state and here just causing havoc. Another one was Detective Ungard, who's one of our representatives on the Weber County Homicide Task Force, was able to utilize the Flock system to identify a homicide suspect, and within 4 hours, multiple arrests were made. We've recovered stolen license plates. We've recovered stolen vehicles. We had another vehicle that eluded one of our officers who was a wanted fugitive, and that person was located. Had 5 warrants for their arrest, and that arrest was made. Aggravated assault that occurred at one of our local businesses involving a firearm. And that's one of those instances where we had basically a shape of a vehicle and a color. Because of the proximity and we knew the direction to travel, it spit out the license plate and the identity of the owner of that vehicle, and we were able to make an arrest for a felony ag assault. An assist for Draper PD, a domestic violence suspect that they were looking for, obviously entered our city, and we helped identify that suspect for another agency. Next slide. Weapons disturbance, vehicle registered out of Tooele. The vehicle was identified and the suspect charged after brandishing a knife. Another weapons disturbance, suspect charged after vehicle identification. Juvenile suspect driving around shooting pedestrians with a ORB. I'm not sure what that is, but the pellet air gun. Another failure to yield. Suspicious vehicle accident. Vehicle that left the scene of an accident. Vehicle burglary suspects. And this is just a few examples of some of the success stories that we have. And I know that that's not the issue. I know that everybody knows the value of the system. So we'll get into some of the questions and concerns. John, if you go to the next slide. So one was the data and is it actually deleted, accessible? And so the data that's collected by the system is kept on the server for 30 days, and then it's purged off. After 30 days, if it's not retrieved by us as a piece of evidence, it is no longer retrievable. There's no way to get it back. It's basically deleted. Next slide. Okay, this slide here refers to state code regarding captured plate data. Captured plate data obtained for the purpose described in section 416A2003 in accordance with section 63G2305 is protected. No, I got it
The
late.
statute actually states it's directed under grammar request. We cannot physically keep the data over 9 months without a warrant, or we're physically work on a case. So grammar request, warrant, we have to have some cause to keep the data after 9 months if we're using it for something. And that's what this actual statute's stating.
Okay, next slide. Thanks, John. Queries into the system are done by authorized personnel for official police business only. So one thing in the contract we have with Flock is that the data that's collected is our data. We give permission to the people that can access it. We don't give permission to people that we don't want to have access, and that includes Flock. So basically, our officers are the only ones we give access to this data. And John is being the administrator. He does a quarterly audit of the system to make sure that everybody who's accessing the data is doing so according to state law and our policy. And feel free to, if you have any questions as we're going through this, just holler. Another question, Flock safety data and footage is encrypted throughout its entire life cycle. The question that this slide revolved around is the secure storage of the data that's collected. It is stored on the AWS cloud, Amazon Gov cloud. Anyway, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with that, but I'll let John explain that.
So I had to do a little bit of research on this myself. A lot of the things was where it's secure, it's stored, is it secured? So AWS, Amazon Web Service, it's a secure cloud. It's under encryption, advanced encryption standard, AES 256. It's virtually what the government uses. White House uses it, federal government, all these big companies use it for the security for their data. We store our images and data in the same encryption through Amazon. So people are worried, I know technology, people are worried about other countries getting our data, going into our stuff, getting our photos. But this encryption, it's impenetrable to get any of the data from it.
Hey, John. Pictures taken do not include any faces or surrounding personal property, but we'll actually just go to the next slide, I think. Yeah, so Detective Ungard actually went to all 10 of our cameras in his vehicle, and these are all images of his vehicle going past each camera. And as you can see, they're all pretty similar. A little bit difference in the angle, but not much of anything you can see other than the back of the car and a little bit of some of the frontage on some of the streets. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see cameras number 9 and 10, same thing. And so this is identical to the image we would get of any other car going past any of these 10 cameras. I think that's it. So we'll just open it up to any other questions.
Councilmember Pulver?
Chief, this is awesome. And I think this is what I think everybody was concerned about. And I applaud all your effort on this. I truly believe that this is an awesome system. And I think one of the biggest concerns has always been getting the data. What do you do with it? And I think that's been one of the things. And I guess the one question I still have is, because doing an audit, great. That's what you're supposed to do. That's spot on. I think the one thing that my background is always audits related, and it's third party. And I guess that's the one thing that I don't know. The Flock system has been kind of sketch on is independent people coming in from outside source to do just, hey, trust but verify. That's literally my entire job as outside of this thing is to do that. And I think, I don't know if that costs money. If it costs money, then we'll figure something out. But I think that's, that would be the next step, is to make sure that if the Flock system is a third party audited system. And I think, because what you're doing, I think is perfect. I don't disagree with anything. I think it's an essential part of your day-to-day job. But I think making sure that the data is, what they said, that's it.
So I just kind of answer that, and I know Ulysses can jump on and maybe try and answer that. We asked that very question because I knew that question was one that might come up, and they do not currently have a third party that audits them particularly for their involvement with the system. We have a contract that basically lines out exactly how, they're involved, what their involvement is. And I guess probably more than anything, we're relying a little bit on their track record, because we're not the first agency to subscribe to their service. We're probably somewhere in the 2,000-3,000th. Just in the references that I checked before we jumped into this, I got nothing but praise on their professionalism and how they've handled their part of their side of the contract. So that.
I think it is a point, Chief, that contracts are good as long as they're followed. Most of us are aware of what just happened with United Healthcare. One of the largest, supposedly most secure database in the country was just hacked. So I think 2 points is, as much as it's encrypted, as much as nothing is 100% foolproof. I mean, I've yet to see anything. Everybody does their best. They've got things in place, but it might be good at some point in time when we talk to other agencies that are using this about their thoughts of when they renew their contract, requiring a third party to review procedures. I don't think that's unusual in the world today. So just maybe something you could follow up on as renewal comes up, or talking with other agencies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay.
Ulysses does have his hand up if you'd like to hear from him.
Okay, let's do so.
Yes, hi, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. I just wanted to chime in and add on to what the chief mentioned there, and in regards to the data and some of the questions that just came up. That's certainly something that I can relay back to my team. And if you would like, we're more than happy to help coordinate and schedule a meeting with you so that we can give you a better understanding of our current operations and security measures that are in place. And while the chief mentioned, we currently, I'm not aware of any third-party audits that happen. Again, that's certainly something that I can bring back to my team and we can have a conversation about. But in the meantime, if you would like I said, we're more than happy to coordinate a meeting with our TS team and our teams internally to really walk you through how we secure our data and how it's kept encrypted and all of the things that we do to make sure that that's kept safe.
Yeah, I'm sure the size of your company, you have adequate controls in place. Being a CPA by trade, the government actually requires public companies now to have their internal controls audited with a report issued on that. And I just think it's good best practices for anybody that has data to make sure that their procedures are being followed. So I would leave that up to the council if they want to hear more, but I do think that it would be good for you to take back to whoever can make a difference. The fact is that is a best practice in just about every company that exists of any size, that their controls are verified and audited. So I don't know if council, do you want to have them come in and make a presentation? I think the key in my mind is the procedures are outlined. The question is, are they followed? I think you're off the hook on making a presentation, looks like to me. Councilmember Dowpass?
I just wanted to say from my experience at my day job, that AWS GovCloud it's the best. It's the pinnacle. So I think there should be reasonable assurance that the data that is held there for 30 days is going to be safe and there shouldn't be any problems. Amazon Web Services has their commercial cloud and they have their Gov Cloud, and the Gov Cloud is set up in a way that it, meets extra compliance and security requirements that are for government organizations. So even just I wasn't sure, but in a quick little Google search, it looks like they're saying AWS is slightly more secure than Microsoft's cloud, Gov Cloud.
So when the Pentagon got hacked, were they on this cloud? Because the Pentagon got hacked.
I can't guarantee anything.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm
So I
just
think
saying
it's
there's
procedures to be followed.
It seems like we have as many assurances as are possible that it's being handled in the right way, but I see what you're saying.
So, okay, anything else? Did the committee have any comment on flock system?
Absolutely. We would encourage I mentioned this earlier, we'd encourage the continued funding for flock. I want to keep North Ogden as well as my neighbors safe from as possible from outside intruders and people doing bad things. Regarding my personal comments on that, the cloud may be secure or not, it's the entry and exit points of every organization that it attaches to it. And that is a local deal as well as, and so following procedures would be extremely best practices. And there's all kinds of industry certifications. I'm sure there's one that would apply here. And I would be interested to hear that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? John, Chief, thank you very much for your time and your presentation.
Thank
We will now move on to,
Mayor?
Councilmember Barker, I'm
I'm
sorry.
gonna see if I can do this right. Can we motion for 5 minutes to saunter, move to saunter? Did I say that correctly?
Second, third, whatever.
Since we've
You
been
want to make a
sitting almost
motion
3
too
hours.
to break council rules and continue after 9 o'clock?
Isn't it's
It's
9:30?
9:30.
Was it 9:30? Oh, okay.
I know you didn't want to hear that.
All right. 5-minute break. I think that's good. Now to item number 7 on our agenda. This will be presented by Jamie Jones, our Finance Director. This is in regards to an ordinance which would amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. So Jamie, would you like to give us information before we start a public hearing?
We're just going to increase a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and decrease there. So any questions? So in the general fund, I'd like to start there. Our original budget was 10.9 million. And this amendment is increasing that budget by 10% to about $12 million. I know that that sounds scary, but there's a lot of explaining to do. There's an adjustment to sales tax revenue, $100,000, but there's also a corresponding expenditure for sales tax admin fee that right now is sitting in non-departmental. So I want to take a few minutes because it's really important that I would like to get direction from the council of what you're comfortable with. The reason why I want to call out, so we discussed this as a council prior to the new council this year. So last year it was decided to report sales tax gross. So that means all the sales tax that the city generates and then also at the state level that will report it gross. Currently, for the prior years, it's always been net. And what net means is all of these fees. And so the state takes 0.65%, so not quite 1% of the fees that are, or excuse me, the sales tax that's collected. The city contributes to the homeless shelter fund. The city also contributes to the emergency food agencies statewide. And then the charitable refund are those charities, 501c3s, whatnot, that actually pay tax, but then on their tax returns, they ask for a refund because they're nonprofits. And so usually during the year, depending on how much the city collects for sales tax, it uses that number is usually around 100,000, 110,000. And so in light of the discussion that we had on April 2nd, you know, talking about the funds that the city contributes to programs or whatnot, it makes sense to call this out as an expense. The other reason why is because when we're trying to dial in the revenues and project out, there's these fees that are included within that number, but then there's also other adjustments during the year. I've seen a $40,000 swing one way and it comes back 20,000 the other way from month to month. And the reason why those are is because there's audits that at the state level that they do, or there was misapplied payments, whether they gave the city funds they shouldn't have because it belonged to another city or the other way around. Those types of things. And so trying to simplify that moving average to take out those variables so that we can project is the reason why I'm asking to do this. I don't know if that's clear. Any questions on that? I know it's kind of a lot. So we don't have to do this. It's not mandated. It's just moving forward when we're trying to project revenues, just to pull out those variables.
So, I mean, that's what they report on the website and on that web page is that, and that's why there's two different numbers.
They do.
Okay.
Yes, they report
Gross
the grosses
and
and
then
then net and then
Yep.
what was actually distributed to the
Okay.
city. And so this would correspond with that. It's just right now it would be a little bit painful because our prior years and our budgets don't reflect those numbers, but moving forward, we can adjust for those.
Yeah, I think the key is when people compare, they're going to think we're getting more sales tax or we're spending more money. There is a movement in private companies to show revenues net. So in that case, this would be netted against sales tax like we're currently doing, but who knows what government accounting is doing. But Anyway, the end
You know,
result.
this I've seen it with other cities. It varies. There are cities that do it.
So council, what's your direction, your preference? Do you care?
And yeah, and I guess for the amendment.
So this is something we've always known about, but we're just putting it into an actual bucket. Is that a good synopsis?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's something we don't have control over that shows as an expenditure in our budget.
Right. So I believe, so you can see where like on line 4, the homeless shelter, it did go up, that 2,300 for this year. I imagine it'll go up next year. The only thing that we would, the only thing that we could really count on for sure is that state admin fee, right?
And these aren't voluntary contributions. These are, my personal preference is, whether you care or not, is that we just continue the way we have and we did it. Because I think if you don't understand what it is, it looks like you're getting more money in than you really have to spend, and it shows an increase in your expenditures. I think it's probably just almost extra work for Jamie, frankly, but she may have a different opinion. She doesn't. But I like it, Nat.
But you said it was easy. Well, if you do it this way, it's easier to project, or is it the old way is easier?
So that's the question, right? Is are we okay with not because we'll always be wrong. I mean, it's not, you can only project what you can.
Yeah, but this
got the
isn't going to
crystal
make us
ball,
be
right?
more right.
That's what I'm saying.
This
Yeah.
won't help us be more right because
No, it won't, but it helps smooth out that moving average. It helps to smooth that out. There's a lot that goes into the behind the scenes and trying to predict it, and with a formula. I don't know if some of the older council that was on last year, when I had that formula where we came within 2%, these kind of variables really get into those.
we'll give you your way, Jamie.
No, we don't
Go
have
ahead.
to. I just want,
Whatever's
actually
easiest for
want-
you.
no, I actually want council to.
Is this easier for you?
Decide. It's easier for me when projecting.
Okay, move forward.
It is.
We support you.
But
we expect your projections to be right on
but
now.
it's your guys' budget, and I don't want to have that confusion there with what the state admin fees are. So.
At some point in time, the state will dictate how to account for this so they can get a consistency across the cities at some point. So, okay.
I tried. We don't. Okay. Where am I at? There was so we are decreasing building permits, $100,000. Right now, sitting at, I want to say I looked on Monday, we're still just barely at 200,000, and that's in the middle of April.
With a budget of 400.
With a budget of 4. And so reducing it to 300,000
Still might
is
not.
still may be high. Let's see here. Plan check fees. Sorry, I'm not sure about that one. Plan check fees were also reduced to $30,000. We do have quite an increase in excavation permit fees of $81,000. There is a question there on what to do with those funds, because we are, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, because we are collecting them because of road cut fees. If we can set those aside for future projects, for next year's projects, that would just mean that we would have to take an extra $81,000 out of general fund balance to help cover the rest of the. to help balance the budget. Sorry, Mayor. All right. 10 o'clock, right? Okay. We had some other miscellaneous revenues increases. We did increase donation for parks. We received a $50,000 donation, anonymous donation for the pickleball courts. And I believe the whole 5,600, excuse me, is, or 56,000 is for the pickleball court donations. We also are asking for an increase in fund balance to be appropriated, which is the $1 million. So if you recall back in January, when we talked about capital projects, we were talking about fund balances. And currently our fund balance at the end of the audit year was about 31%. And we talked about how we needed to transfer about 775,000 to drop the fund balance to 25%, but also transfer it over to the CIP fund, the Capital Improvement Projects Fund, to cover projects that are budgeted there. And so that's part of that $1 million. The other 225 is 225,000 is in case revenues come in over expenditures to the point where we'll max out the 35%, which is required by the state, but we can transfer that as well over to the CIP fund. Any questions there?
So there is no technically $1 million line anywhere on here. That was what I was confused about. So it's less than that going from general fund. Where am I not seeing it in the sheets? Is it?
What do you mean it's less than that?
Well, no, I'm just saying, is that, so there is $1 million line someplace in the backup or no?
Yeah, so that was be on page 17.
Okay.
Or not 17, was that on 17? It's on page 20.
20.
And 20 of the actual document of the actual budget.
Okay, but that's the.
Fund 40, you can see down at the bottom,
Mhm.
404810, where it says $1 million. And so it says appropriated fund balance. That means it's going to the capital projects fund balance. It is not going to a project.
So you got a transfer in and a transfer out.
Okay.
So the transfer in
Yeah.
is the 1.2 million. 5.1.
Okay.
And so that's coming over from general fund.
Okay. So going into the capital projects, that needs to be allocated to a project, right?
Say that again.
So going into the capital projects, it has to get allocated to a certain project or? once we
Okay,
put it in
so
there?
so at the end of the document,
Yeah.
I
Is the
had the capital
projection.
projects plan.
Yeah.
And so you can see the 775 coming in.
Wait, no. Is that the one?
So the 775 coming in, plus when we originally budgeted 357,000 to come over into capital projects. But because of the amendments that we need to do with the increasing costs, that number drops from 357 to 200,000.
But this schedule that's at the end shows where the money's being spent.
So yes.
Where we're committed to.
So you can see that there is an ending balance of 1.7 million.
And then as you go out the 5 years, you see that coming down to the last year, see there where that's a negative. So if we expended money on all the projects that are listed here, we'd have to generate another $301,000 to cover all the projects that are in there. So to your question, yes, it's identified and allocated to those projects.
Okay, so I guess, but do we know specific, I guess where I'm going is that if it's not specific to a project and say the project gets done, heaven forbid, under budget, do we know that so we can unallocate it and put it back in general fund?
If necessary, yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can transfer money back to the general fund if you need it.
But but once you allocate it to a project, it's tied there, right?
No,
I thought, okay.
it's identified. It's not tied.
Earmarked, but
It's
it's not.
earmarked,
Okay.
but it's not tied. But the fact of the matter is this city has a $20 million capital project sitting out there that has not been addressed for 20 years.
Roads.
It's called Barker Park.
Well, that too. So like.
So if you want to just, the only reason you'd ever transfer any money back there is if you overran your general fund and you didn't have revenues to cover it. Because between roads, parks, you can see that this city has got, and we've been concentrating on this for the last 3 or 4 years to build this fund to cover these commitments that are out there. But you can see if you go over to the very last year, with all these, now the council can cancel any of these projects they like. But they're all identified out there, which means we've allocated the capital projects fund.
Okay.
Its entirety.
I'm gonna wrap my head. Okay.
We can have a counting 101 discussion.
Okay, so we've decreased the council's department fund by 16,000. The elections were cheaper than we had anticipated. We increased the court costs, and that is to help cover part-time wages. Specifically, it has to do with the judge. No changes in the recorder department. and the finance department. We reduced it 30,000 because of personnel cost. I was without an employee for a couple months. Administration, there was no change. In human resources, there was a change in benefits, so that went down 7,000. In non-departmental, we did had some unemployment costs, and then emergency management costs, and that had to deal with last year's flooding that happened. There were some costs that were incurred there on 1700 North, and then there's that sales tax admin fee that we talked about earlier. No change in government buildings, and then there's a change in public safety for the police department, $100,000. This has to do with the retirements. Sad to say, but the retirements that have happened this year, and then increases to the beer tax expense because we did receive more funds and more grant funds in there in that line item.
Jamie, if I could just expand on the 100,000 on retirements. The city and most cities have this policy that someone who retires after X number of years can cash in X amount of their sick leave. And we budgeted 50,000, and you can see it came in well above that because we had, the chief, 2 lieutenants who had been with us a long time, and we had a building inspector that's been with us a long time. So that is the cashing in of X amount of sick leave that had been accrued over their years of service.
Planning went down 44,000. Again, because of personnel expenses, not filling that position until later in the budget year. Building inspections were up 60,000. That was because we did hire a new employee to cover what the mayor said. We had a retirement there in that department. Streets and highways went up. Again, mainly due to personnel. Most of that is because we've had some reorganization as we've had people change departments, and so with that, those personnel costs go with that. Same thing with public services that has to deal with those personnel changes in-house. Some changes to the community events, just expenses that were budgeted that are not forecasted to be used. So that went down 11,000. No changes in parks, no changes in recreation. And then again, the changes in the contribution and transfers, that 1.2 million going to capital projects and a reduction in the charity day funds. Originally, there was 44,000 budgeted there, but there was only 25 that was needed. Oh, I forgot about the debt service fund. last year it was anticipated that we would implement the public safety impact fee, and that did not happen. And so we had to transfer more general fund dollars over to cover debt service.
Councilmember Pulver.
Did you get your answer on the band thing?
Oh,
Oh, yes, so the community
Thanks for
band, sorry, I do
reminding
have a note. The community band, we did receive a ramp grant for that. We received that in July. And so that
Okay,
was
so it's just a
to
number that
include.
didn't really affect us, but it's shown. Okay, thank you.
And then also, let's see here, also, so that is general fund. We talked about the debt service fund, decreasing that 35,000 and transferred from the general fund. We had to change the Cherry Days fund to actually reflect how that did in July. So I believe, so this should tie into with the report that they had a couple months ago. The Transportation Utility Fund, we are asking to use fund balance there, and this has to do with that street projects that Dave mentioned about an hour ago, where we're do the assessment and the study. So the 110, so the plan is to budget the 110 this year so they could get started on it, and you will see this again next year for the same 110. But what they don't spend this year, if anything at all, it'll be spent into next year's budget. The public safety fee fund, that's that reduction, capital improvements. So again, this one is to reduce the capital transfer of 357 down to 200,000, and then we are transferring that 56,000 donation that we received for the parks to allocate that to the pickleball court. Let's see here. We need to amend the budget for the ramp grant dollars that was granted in fiscal year of 22. Excuse me, yes, fiscal year of 22. Sorry, no, fiscal year of 23. But we didn't receive them in 23, even though we had budgeted for the project. And so the project wasn't done. We reached out to them and we actually received the funds this year. So we put the project back in once they confirmed, and we received the funds last fall. So that's why we moved forward with that project. We also need to amend for the parking lots. The senior center parking lot was originally budgeted for 400,000, and that came in at 3, and the public safety parking lot came in at 300,000. And then asking for an extra $50,000 to complete the pickleball court.
I think Councilmember Pulver has a question.
So help me with the 295 for the Barker Park. Mayor and I chatted a little bit. I just want to put it out in the open. So is or is not for the TV? That's something in the past?
The audio visual projects that they're doing, yes.
Okay, so that's I don't see what the offset is, I guess, because we're not budgeting for that in ramp grants. Because I thought that was coming all except for fire grant.
It is for ramp grants, but the ramp grants ramp grants that was received for this year's projects, we received last year, but we didn't receive last year's until this year.
So the 295 is covered by the ramp grants?
Yes.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah, the city, I think, is half of that,
Half.
and ramp grants half.
Okay.
It was budgeted in 2023, along with the 2750 North Trailhead.
Complicated.
The water fund, increase in capital projects. Originally, this was for the backfill dirt work, but apparently we have an agreement where we're getting that for free. I would rather keep that in case that doesn't happen and we need to backfill that. It doesn't mean that we have to spend it. And then also, we would also like to start demoing the public workshop over there by the Waterworks Park. The water fund is the one that actually owns the building, and so that's why it has to come out of the water fund. And then in the police motor pool, last year there were 2 vehicles that were budgeted, but we didn't receive them until fiscal year 24. The funds were already there because they were transferred last year. It's just being spent this year. Okay, I think that was it.
What questions might you have of Jamie regarding the budget amendments? I've gone over them with her in detail. And even though they're very complicated, they make sense. The bottom line is that you can see that we went from budgeting $357,000 to go from general fund to capital improvements down to 200, which means we're $157,000 in expenditures or lack of revenues than we'd anticipated. Okay, if there's no questions, then I would open the public hearing for anyone who would like to ask further questions or address issues they have regarding the budget amendment. So the public hearing is now open.
Hopefully I don't bore you to death and cause you to sleep. There's a couple things I wanted to bring up as we've gone through this whole budget and spent hours doing it. One is there was a discussion earlier in one of our presentations that we were given on the cost of garbage and dumpsters. And we've taken this and done a little bit of research. We would like to propose that the city does not provide your dumpster for you, but rather that we want you to have a dumpster and the individuals want them.
Oh, Chris, I've got to tell you, this is a public hearing regarding budget amendments.
Okay.
So we might want to reserve your comments for public comments, because this is specifically to the public hearing for the budget amendments that were just presented. I apologize for not properly explaining that.
I'll come back. Thank you.
Love to have you back. Okay, I see no one that would like to comment regarding the budget amendments. So council, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have such a motion? Motion by Council Member Severing. Seconded by Council Member Dowpaz. Any further discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
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 Okay, now that you've had a chance to digest that wonderful presentation by Jamie, we need to have a motion to consider ordinance number 2024-06, which would amend the fiscal year 2023-24 budget as explained by Jamie, our finance director. Do I have such a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve 2024-06, which is amending the 2023 and 2024 budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Dowpaz. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pulver. Are there any further questions or discussion? If not, we'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Councilmember Watson.
Yes.
Councilmember Severing.
Yes.
Councilmember Dowpaz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We're now going to move on to item number 7. 8.
We're back on schedule.
Back on schedule. This is a discussion or an action on the recommendation from the North Ogden Planning Commission on legislative amendment to rezone property for land Nope. That's 7.
We did 7.
So I'm on 8.
Yes.
We're back to 8. Not that good with numbers. Okay. Then we're going to have a discussion led by Ryan Nunn, our planner, in regards to ordinance 2024-08, which is amending the North Ogden Code Title 11-9M-8D regarding accessory buildings. Ryan, do you want to move
Mayor?
forward?
Yes, yeah,
Mayor?
thank you.
Sorry, we're coming up on our 9:30 mark. So I would suggest that we allow Ryan to present because he's been waiting here for hours. But other than that, I'd say we get his presentation done and we put everything else off to the next meeting.
I would sure defer the council
Oh,
reports.
other
but I
than-
think
other
we've
than
had
public
Mr.
comments.
Shoup here, who's been
No,
waiting.
Other than
for his
public
hand.
comments, I meant to say that.
Okay. All right.
All right, I'll be brief with my presentation. To simply put it, the applicant, Mr. Scadden, he had applied for a building permit, submitted plans later in the year. Due to a staff error, his neighbor got an accessory building approved with a flat roof. So he changed his plans, and inspectors noticed the change, and so he wasn't able to move forward with his project. So he's applied to have this code removed. The standard for roof pitch were, for the design and materials in our code for accessory buildings, it's there to help really protect neighbors from structures on neighboring properties. And there is an argument you could make that roof pitch is in there, but however, building code does regulate roof pitch materials that need to be used on these structures that are 200 square feet or more. So really staff's opinion is that, it's reasonable that this could be removed, and we want to pose it to the city council to discuss that. I can help answer any questions, and we have our applicant here as well to help answer any of those questions.
So Ryan, if I could just clarify, so we have 2 things here.
Mhm.
We had an error made by the city in a roof pitch, but that building permit was approved with that pitch.
Correct, yeah.
But the second instance, it was not approved in the submitted plans. So we had one that was approved in the submitted plans, and we have another one that was submitted as a 412 pitch, was approved that way, and it was never amended. The applicant just decided to do that because he saw his neighbor do it.
Yeah, that is correct.
So is this the thing with 2 wrongs make a right? Because I
Okay.
guess the thing that gets me is that, mistakes are made. But if somebody's going to change their plans, particularly in the fact that this individual is a developer and knows the regulations, I'm not saying we don't change this, but this is getting a little bit old from my standpoint, that we start changing ordinances to take care of people who aren't following the rules. That's up to the council if they want to change it. But it gets concerning to me that that's how we end up changing all these ordinances, is to right a wrong for somebody who decided not to follow the process, but knew the process. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Summary?
Yeah.
I'm not saying we don't change it, but
Mhm.
the fact is that where does this end? Because if we're doing it for, I like consistency. That's one of the accounting principles.
Yeah, and with roof pitch, like there's a question on, is that a good requirement to have for these buildings 200 square feet or more? And so that's something.
Why
with
was it a good
council's
requirement when it was put in?
you know, there was discussion, it probably came from public opinion a few years ago. There was structures being built that, were seemed intrusive on neighboring properties, and that's where this may have come from. But, now where this is, becoming an issue for not just one property owner, but a few, where the 412 pitch requirement is limiting the structures they want to build.
So Ryan, what's magical about a 10-foot setback?
On the
I mean, this is, that's the thing, is any ordinance can be challenged based upon if somebody likes it or they don't like it. Or is it a 30-foot setback or 20 or, I mean, I know some of it's state regulation. But, to say it's public opinion, well, we could change anything based upon public opinion, right? I mean, we got the fire chief here, if assistant fire, well, whatever you are. Anyway, you have a comment.
In a previous life, I used to roof lots of houses. Construction years ago used to always have roof pitches. The new modern style is no longer, it's like you see the flat box style, and it's like that's the new style of roofs. I may or may not agree because I'm old school and I like to see the high pitched roof and the shingles, but these flat roof membranes actually last longer and are better protection than a 30-year architectural shingle.
I have a 212 pitch on my garage.
And it has metal on it.
And it
That
has
lasts
metal
even
on it.
longer than shingles. Yeah.
And if snow comes flying right off that.
Yep. Yep. Because it's metal. Right.
You just hope nobody's standing under it. Is this, is this roof metal?
It'll be probably a rubber.
Yeah, with building code, it would require material to be safe and withstand those snow and wind loads.
Mine sure ain't safe.
This
If
one
somebody
won't be shedding
standing under
snow.
that,
No.
it'll kill them. Anyway, what questions do you have for Ryan or the applicant?
Well, so my
Councilmember
question is
Walker?
why are we regulating on an accessory building the roof pitch if we weren't going to regulate on a house? Because you can build a house over 200 square feet with a flat roof.
Yeah, that was I believe that was a comment even brought up in our planning commission, and you can do that. You can do flat roofs with a home. Why not accessory building?
Well, I don't have a problem with it. Like I say, changing the ordinance, but what irritates me is that people don't think they have to follow the rules. Then they come in here and want us to change everything. I mean, where does it end? I mean, to me, if we want, I've always said this from the day I became mayor, if we've got ordinances that are irrelevant, let's get rid of them. If they're not relevant, if they're relevant, let's keep them. But anyway, what questions do you have of Brian?
It seems like the ordinance as written is, in your opinion, more visual than anything, so requiring a 412 pitch per the ordinance right now. Is there a technical reason that would be required, or more of a visual reason?
I'm not sure on the reasoning why that was put in there. In my thoughts, it was maybe a visual reason. But, that being said, like, it's not really a safety issue if whether you have a 412 or a 112 for the building. I can't speak to snow sliding off of it, but safety, like there's really no.
I think I'm okay with changing it, but I'm definitely on board with mayor's mentality. It's getting old.
Well, and if it's only visual, why do we have a 20-foot setback on Washington Boulevard? Because it's visual. So if we're getting out of the ordinance of visual, we better be consistent in our application, because there is no reason in the world other than visual you have to have a setback of 20 feet on Washington Boulevard. So anyway, would you want to hear from the applicant, or you just want to move forward?
Move forward.
Okay, we have a move forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan, for your presentation and your work put into that. So council, I would look for a motion to approve ordinance 24-08, which would amend the North Ogden Code, Title 11-9M-8D for accessory buildings to remove the required 412 roof pitch for accessory buildings over 200 square feet. I guess it still has to be 412 for under 200 feet, according to reading this, because it's only amending it for over 200 feet. Or can it be flat under 200 feet already? Okay, so 200 square feet in floor area. Do we have a motion? Councilmember
Mayor.
Barker.
I'll make a motion. We approve ordinance 2024-08, amending the North Ogden Code Title 11-9M-8, removing the 412 pitch on accessory buildings over 200 feet.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. Do we have a second to that
Second.
motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpez. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Councilmember Watson. Yes. Councilmember Severing
Yes.
and Councilmember Dalpez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, as suggested, we will defer council department reports and we'll go to public comments. Just reminding of the same overview I gave of public comments. That being the case, anybody who would like to comment, please step up to the podium. Please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes.
Council members, my name is Dave Shoup. I live in Liberty, own a business in North Ogden. John Call, is there a way I can get you to pull up a map of North Ogden City, please? When I left off, I was talking about some obvious inconsistencies that I see that North Ogden City has. When the new Public Works facility was constructed, spanning the distance between Loman View Drive and Pleasant View Drive, there is no sidewalk along Loman View Drive or Pleasant View Drive in that location. But North Ogden City and its planning commission thought it or deemed it necessary to put a sidewalk along the southern border of my facility. And so I'm curious to know why. What's the difference between Loman View Drive and Pleasant View Drive, less than a quarter mile away from my facility? If it's for public use and safety, then North Ogden City should not only put a sidewalk in there, but maintain it. And North Ogden City should maintain the sidewalk existing in front of the current, well, the old Public Works facility, which hasn't happened. But you'll send an officer to my door and knock on my door and say, hey, you got to go clean your sidewalk when you don't clean your own. That seems hypocritical in my view. Another vicissitude that I see is that garbage blows from your recycling center there in front of the old Public Works facility. When the wind blows, it blows that cardboard over into my facility, and then I have to spend my time picking up the garbage that's left or the recyclable cardboard. I have pictures. If you're interested, I can show you what I think is an obvious eyesore for North Ogden City. And my time is limited, so I won't show you those pictures now, but if you're interested, I'd sure like to show you. There is a street sign that exists, two signs together on one pole that say through traffic merge left and bike lane ends, and it obstructs the view of the electronic sign that predates your sign. Now, there is another sign further south past the intersection that says the same exact thing, through traffic merge left. But because your signs are obstructing the view of my electronic sign, I think that it's affecting my business. You also have a yield to pedestrian sign attached to the power pole that has room enough for these other two signs to be attached, and we could eliminate or remove the sign that's obstructing the view as travelers are going south on Washington Boulevard and trying to read my sign. I did contact Todd Finlinson. He's a Region 1 director over UDOT. He referred me to the MUTCD, which stands for Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Device. Page 41, Part 2, an order of priority is especially critical when space is limited for sign installation and there is demand for several different types of signs. Overloading road users with too much information is not desirable. That's what code says from the MUTCD. Moving on to item 10, information of a less critical nature should be moved to less critical locations or omitted. So I would ask this council to get Public Works to move the sign. Really, that's what I want. I'm unfamiliar with the waterworks that I've heard discussed here today that's going in on the west side of the old Public Works facility. If that is indeed true, how do you propose that we keep patrons of that facility from parking in what I just spent thousands of dollars building for my use? If there's a permit system that's going in, who pays for that? If I have to put up a gate, who pays for that? This is all one more vicissitude that I'm having to deal with because North Ogden City isn't looking at it from my point of view. If I catch a car parked there, that's another job for me. What am I supposed to do? Call a tow company and have them come do that? I don't have time enough in my day to police my parking lot. Don't do it. Don't put something in that I have to then work harder to maintain my lifestyle. Don't give me that vicissitude. Another thing, North Ogden police officers, I'm sorry the police chief's left, but I know it's late. They park, on occasion, I've caught them with their police cars in my driveway, trying to set like a speed trap or watching for traffic inconsistencies, and it obstructs people getting in and out of my parking lot. Please talk to your police chief and have him stop that activity. The other thing that I have issue with is the liability that is, I'm now handcuffed to a sidewalk. If somebody slips and falls and hurts themselves, my liability insurance just went up. Who pays for that? You're saying that that's my responsibility to cover the liability on a sidewalk that isn't even mine, that doesn't even exist on my property. And why is that? Maybe to give you a feel for what I'm thinking or feeling, let's imagine that I deed 1 inch of property 360 feet long on my property. That way my property abuts Mr. Barker's, and Mr. Barker then is responsible to clean that sidewalk because his property now abuts the sidewalk. Essentially, that's what you've done to me. You've made me handcuffed to a sidewalk I didn't want. And quite frankly, we don't need. We just went over budget constraints. Why would North Ogden City spend the money to put a sidewalk in that, one, I don't want to take care of, and number two, it costs the taxpayers, I don't know how much money. Maybe we could ask Scott how much money that sidewalk costs and why do that? I don't understand the inconsistencies. I don't understand the power that you feel that you have to dictate what and how I spend my life. If
Okay,
you
thanks,
have other
Mr. Shoup.
questions for me, I would like to field those.
5 minutes is up. What I would ask, John, would you like to respond to any of Mr. Shoup's comments on the sidewalk, et cetera? Or would you just like to?
So one of the goals, council, is to particularly install sidewalks on routes to school. And this sidewalk was included in the Washington Boulevard widening project because there are a number of kids who cross at that location where the crossing guard is. And so it was to get the kids off at the sidewalk or off of the shoulder and onto a sidewalk behind the curb in this location. And that's why it was included in that project.
Then why doesn't North Ogden clear it beyond that?
Okay, Mr. Shoup, thank you for your
Out of
comments.
time and
Thanks for
money,
coming.
and you have the monopoly on that, time and money? How come you think?
Thank you, Mr. Shoup. Appreciate it.
Hello, council. Philip Swanson, North Ogden resident.
sure you're all glad you're sitting up there on this late evening. I wanted to agree with something Mayor said a little bit ago, that it's getting a little bit old as individuals knowingly violate city code, whether or not it's code that ought to be there. There's a process that ought to be adhered to. And it isn't, I go down Washington Boulevard at 70 miles an hour because I think that's the appropriate speed. And when I get a ticket, I come to council and ask that the speed limit be raised and my ticket be eliminated, because I think the speed limit ought to be 70 miles an hour. I knew it was 35, but I decided that I was going to do 70. There's a process that ought to be followed, and the process should not be that I violate the code and then come and ask for the code to be changed so I'm no longer in violation. If there's something that I want to build or something that I want to do and a code restricts that, I should come to council and ask for the code to be changed before I do whatever it is that I want to do. If I want to do 70 on Washington, I'll come to council and ask you to raise the speed limit to 70 so that I can drive 70. And so I'm just asking that council look at the process. I agree that there are codes that don't need to be there. You remember the infamous barefoot in the park that we eliminated a number of years ago, about 8 years ago. Before that time, it was illegal to be barefoot in any of North Ogden's parks. And illegal to dip your sheep in the creek. So silly things like that. As far as the clearing of sidewalks of snow, every resident in North Ogden City, as you all well know, is responsible for clearing the sidewalks in front of their homes that they do not own. They belong to North Ogden City. I do have a solution for you, though. The city of Montreal, Canada, spends $200 million a year clearing snow. They have 1.78 million people. And so that comes out to $112 per person per year to remove the snow. And they remove the snow on every sidewalk, every street. They don't push it to the sides. They put it in dump trucks. They dump it in canyons and in rivers and things like that. So council, if you will simply institute a tax increase of $2.471 million, that's $112 per person in North Ogden. So if we'll just raise our taxes to the tune of $2.4 million, there's not a person in the city, business or resident, that will have to clear the sidewalk in front of their residence or their business. So I encourage you to do that in this year's budget process so that we are no longer burdened with clearing sidewalks in front of our homes and businesses. I appreciate everything that you do and for the hard work and the many hours that you put in. Thank you.
Carmen Sinone, Weaver County. Just a quick follow-up on an issue that Dr. Shoup mentioned about the Waterworks Park. I noticed on the slide, it's designated to be completed this June. Am I correct? Okay. So again, as I asked in my earlier comments, where is the designated parking for that? Since I'm one of those people that needs to use Pleasant View Drive to access Washington Boulevard, and it's at times very congested there. Where is the designated parking for the Waterworks project?
John, you want to?
So on the site plan, it's on-street parking. The goal of this park is to be connected to the trail system and utilized that way, you know, so that there was a reduction in parking for that.
And there has been some discussion about
But most of
closing Pleasant View Drive and making that parking.
And how
We'll see how
and
it
how would
goes.
we then access Washington Boulevard?
300 East.
You can't get across 300 East
When there's
most
a
of the
light there,
day.
you will. You'll be
And
able
when
to
will
get
the
there.
light be installed?
And
That is the issue. That's part of my safety concern. You don't have the infrastructure to do that.
I was just going to say, the idea is this development that was just approved, there's that 300 East. So even though it's slightly inconvenient, people could go north on 300 East and go down
Loman View?
Loman View Drive.
Except you can't make a right-hand turn off of Loman View any easier than you can on Pleasant View. I have property and houses on both streets. I travel it often. It just doesn't work. My other, I just want to reiterate again that hopefully there will be no decrease in the existing wells from this waterworks project. But again, the parking, again, and if you look at the parking right now on Pleasant View Drive, there is no parking from 300 East to Washington. It's designated as no parking. There's a red line on the curb. You can't park there. And that's my comments. I just don't understand how you're going to do this without severely impacting the existing citizens and our travel paths. Until there's light put up, I don't see that closing Pleasant View Drive is an option. Thank you.
Anyone else this evening? All right, I think we'll, unless somebody has something of great
Susan
importance.
Kilborn online.
Oh, Susan Kilborn, please.
Hi, Susan Kilborn, North Ogden resident. I'll make it short. I'm just as tired as you guys are. First of all, I want to thank all the department heads for their stellar work in explaining in understandable language the budget. And my gosh, I appreciated that so much. And I've looked over that thing a bunch of times, but hearing people talk about it and having conversation about it really made sense to me. Second of all, Mr. Mayor, I'm doing for you tonight because you made two statements that really hit home with me. The first one was when we were talking about the townhomes. I loved your comment about that you would appreciate having the buyers, the owners, be required to live in their property. Because I live in an area in Lakeview where I have seen older people pass away. The kids have their own homes and they're turned into rentals and they look like crap. They're not taken care of. So it's just inviting that. So I'm disappointed in the way the council voted on that tonight. My second opinion is, oh my God, I'm having a senior moment. Okay, wait a minute. I'll get it. No, I lost it. Oh, I had a question about the rain barrel program. I was wondering if it was a success in North Ogden or whether many citizens are not taking advantage of it or maybe they don't know about it. Anybody know? Like Dave, maybe?
John says he knows.
So we got some communication from that group and they said they sold less this year than they wish they would have. And then mentioned that in years where there's seems to be plenty of water in the hills, people buy less rain barrels. So it wasn't fully unexpected.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, but this is just 1 year. So I would like to see maybe if we could put a blurb in the North Ogden Connection, you know, reminding people about that because I think it's really an awesome project. And I just remembered what else I was going to say, and I'm going to talk fast. I was going to also commend Mayor and Mr. Swanson, North Ogden City resident, on the fact that I, for one, and apparently others, are questioning the fact that the city council here is placating people who are violating our laws, codes, and amendments. And I'm frankly pretty sick and tired of every time I zoom in and I'm caring about what's going on, somebody else is getting a concession. And other than that, peace and love. Have a good weekend. It's a long night. Thank you, everybody.
Is there any other comments of great importance that can't wait till next meeting? If not, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Motion